Well, this is one of the stories we are tracking very closely here on Times Now, but that's all we could pack in for you here on News Pulse. But let me hand it over to our editor-in-chief, Rahul Shivshankar, for India Upfront.
Thanks indeed, Meghna. Thanks indeed. Yes, on India Upfront, viewers, the biggest story of the day. An all-out crackdown on hate, cutting across ideological divide, party and religious lines. The Delhi police has booked politicians, clerics, activists for their alleged hate messages and statements that are insightful and hurt religious sentiments. Among them are AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi, BJP suspended leader Nupur Sharma, controversial seer Yati Narsinghanand. You remember him, viewers. He addressed the Dharam Sansad. Journalist Sabha Naqvi. Viewers, let me go through each one of these names and tell you what these individuals have been booked for. So Asaduddin Owaisi, AIMM chief for hate speech. Nupur Sharma, suspended BJP leader for derogatory remarks against the Prophet. Naveen Jindal, again an expelled BJP leader, derogatory tweet against the Prophet. Shadab Chauhan hailed the Taliban for taking over Kabul. Sabha Naqvi, Delhi-based journalist, posted a meme against the Shivling. Maulana Mufti Nadeem, a cleric, he threatened to gouge the eyes out of those who had moved court. In the Gyanvapi issue, he also threatened to chop their hands off. Pooja Shakun of the Hindu Mahasabha, objectionable remarks against namaz. So as you can see, viewers, this action cuts across both political lines, ideological lines, and of course, religious lines. So it is a pretty secular crackdown. Now, viewers, if you really look closely at each of these offences, then they fall under certain sections of the IPC. Section 153A of the IPC, promoting enmity on grounds of religion, which carries a maximum 5-year jail term or a fine. There you can see. Section 295 of the IPC, damage of a place of worship or sacred object, 2 years in jail and or fine. Section 298 of the IPC, deliberate intent to hurt religious feelings, which is 1 year jail and or a fine. Section 504 of the IPC, 505 of the IPC, intentional insult to provoke breach of peace, offence in any place of worship or assembly. And Section 506 of the IPC, punishment for criminal intimidation. All these sections carry varying jail terms between 2 years to 7 years. But the crackdown is being mocked as balancewad and one-sidism. Not my words. There they are on your screens, words that have been coined by Asaduddin Owaisi. Just let's take you over what he has said. He said, the police are suffering from both sidism and balancewad syndrome. FIRs didn't specify what the crime is or which remark attracted the crime. Police lacks courage to pursue cases on Yati, Nupur and Jindal. Police making it look like there was hate speech on both sides. Also, he says, didn't equate criticizing a hate speech and giving hate speeches. Muslims are jailed for the sole crime of merely being Muslim. So all these statements he has actually tweeted out. Owaisi isn't the only one. His co-accused political analyst Danish Qureshi has also alleged selective action. Listen in to what Danish Qureshi had to say.
अभी तक किसी प्रकार की कोई जानकारी नहीं मिली। मीडिया के माध्यम से, टाइम्स नाउ चैनल के माध्यम से मुझे ये पता चला है कि भाई कुछ 30-31 लोगों के खिलाफ मामले दर्ज हुए हैं। उन 30-31 लोगों में एक मेरा भी नाम है। दरअसल दिक्कत क्या है कि हेट स्पीचर्स को काउंटर देना और हेट स्पीचर्स होना, इन दोनों चीज़ों में फ़र्क है। हम हमारे देश में देख रहे हैं कि किस तरह हेट्रेड फैलाने वालों को रिवॉर्ड दिया गया भारतीय जनता पार्टी की तरफ से। आप देख लीजिए नंबर ऑफ क्रिमिनल्स, साध्वी प्रज्ञा हो, चाहे दिल्ली राइट्स के आरोपी हों, वो सारे लोग किस तरह से भारतीय जनता पार्टी में जुड़ते हैं। जो लोग नफरत की राजनीति करते हैं, उनके बड़े बड़े सांसद पब्लिकली स्टेटमेंट देते हैं गोली मारो को, तो उनके नाम नहीं आते। उनके खिलाफ इंसाफ के हक में बोलने वालों को हेट स्पीचर्स की लिस्ट में डाला जा रहा है। ये बहुत बड़ा मतलब अफसोसनाक बात है।
Viewers, Owaisi and others who echo him or are ideologically aligned to his thoughts are plainly misleading India. The fact is that a section of minorities are using Nupur and Naveen's comments to spread Hindu phobia and are calling for beheadings, which is the maximum punishment for blasphemy according to their interpretation of the Sharia. And viewers, the latest instance of this comes from Jammu. Now we have highly edited, proscribed, censored, use any word, viewers, this particular tape. Because you see, in this country, if you put this stuff out, which exposes one community, you will be accused of spreading Islamophobia. That's where it has got to. So viewers, the more objectionable part of this rant by a cleric, and the cleric is standing there on that balcony and he's addressing the congregation, so to speak. This is what he says. Listen in, threatening, beheading, and all sorts of other delinquent crimes. Listen to this.
मेरे भाइयों, लेकिन सर्व को कलम करना भी सिखाते हैं। तो इसलिए बातों को ज़हन में बिठा दो। हम खामोश तब तक है जब तक हमारा बर्दाश्त कायम है। बर्दाश्त से बाहर निकल गए तो फिर वो नुपुर शर्मा क्या, वो आशीष कोहली क्या, वो नुपुर शर्मा क्या, उनके सर कहीं और धड़ कहीं मिलेंगे। नवीका कलमे पढ़ने वाला मुसलमान खुद मैदान में आए और ये भगवे भी हमारे दुश्मन, आरएसएस भी हमारी दुश्मन है। तो इसलिए मैं अंजुमन इस्लामिया की तरफ से तमाम अवाम का शुक्रिया करता हूँ। मैंने जैसे पहले ही अर्ज किया कि ये अमन को खराब करने वाले अनासिर हैं, कभी अजान पे कभी पर्दे पे। तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को चाहिए जो अजान के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े, अगर जो पर्दे के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े। ये गला नहीं पकड़ सकते तो हम गला काटने के लिए तैयार हैं। हम गला काटने के लिए तैयार हैं। और इनको मैं बताना चाहता हूं, सबसे ज्यादा कम दर्जे का मुसलमान इतना ईमान रखता है, दुनिया के किसी भी ब्रिगेडियर, किसी भी ताकत गुस्सा के नबी का सर कलम कर सकते।
Now viewers, remember what I told you about what Asaduddin Owaisi said. Asaduddin Owaisi said that Muslims are being jailed for the sole crime of merely being Muslims. This is what he said in his own tweet. Now viewers, if someone decides to arrest Adil Ganai, and I'm quite sure that whatever he has spewed today falls under all the sections of the law that I read out to you. So if you've forgotten what I told you, section 153A, 295, 298, 504 of the IPC, 505 of the IPC, and 506 of the IPC. By Asaduddin Owaisi's logic, if Adil Ganai, the person that you are hearing, is arrested, this will be one-sidism of the police. That means, viewers, that by arresting him, the police would be making an example out of Muslims, not cracking down on hate. That is what he said. By not calling out these extrajudicial calls for action against those accused of blasphemy, the ecosystem who guns for Hindu hate mongers is only pushing India down the road to religious obscurantism. What do these people want? An India where people who feel offended burn the object of their anger at the stake? Chop their heads off Taliban style? Chop their hands off PFI style? The fact is, viewers, In our great secular country, appeasing hate on one side of the fence has become the norm. And I'm not talking through my hat. I always back up everything I say with facts. Here are some examples of the so-called secular brigade appeasing rank communalists. The first fact: behead those who put Quran in Durga Puja Pandal. Abbas Siddiqui of the ISF. He's the chief of the ISF. Yet the left and the Congress allied with ISF in 2021 Bengal election. This is a fact. Another fact: the DMK openly backs for the release of Rajiv killer Pararivalan. After Pararivalan's release, CM Stalin embraced him. A section of the media viewers is called out for putting Nupur on air. But Pararivalan wrote an editorial for a prominent national daily. Yet, viewers, Congress shares power in Tamil Nadu with the DMK. The DMK is an elected party which is tasked with upholding the constitution. Another fact: PFI, SDP are extremist organizations but not banned. This was not said by me. Kerala High Court, May 2022. After several states, Centre also in process of banning PFI. Says SG Mehta to the Supreme Court, April 2021. Yet SDPI withdrew candidates against the Congress in 2018 Karnataka polls. Why did they do so? I don't know. I'm still looking for answers. Voting rights of Muslims should be taken away, said Sanjay Raut, Shiv Sena in 2015. Yet secular Congress and NCP share power in Maharashtra with the Shiv Sena. Another fact: come what may, I will never join hands with the AIUDF. For Tarun Gogoi, the AIUDF was a sectarian organization. Who was he? He was the then Congress Chief Minister, 2016 Assam. Yet Congress allied with the AIUDF for the 2021 Assam polls. There are several such examples. Viewers, the question we are asking: how is 100% accountability applied across the board? When people are booked across the board, how is this one-sidism? Let's open this up. Let's ask some basic questions. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, part of the panel tonight. Rashmi Samant, former Student Union President of Oxford University and human rights activist. We have with us Lokesh Jindal, leader of the Congress. Atikur Rahman, who is a analyst. Advocate Talha Amir Rashidi, spokesperson of the Rashtriya Ulema Council, who will be joining us, and Amana Begum Ansari, research and political analyst. Let me begin with you first, Dr. Ranganathan. What do you make of what Mr. Owaisi says today? Balancewad, sidism. What's happening here?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. Because, Rahul, you showed that really disturbing and spine-chilling video, can I please compliment our ex-Vice President, Mr. Hamid Ansari, for coining the euphemism, Dara Hua Musalman. Sheer genius on his part. All around us, all we see are Dara Hua Musalmans. From Jammu, where Dara Hua Musalmans are shouting from top of mosques that they will behead Nupur Tiwari and all those who oppose Azan and Hijab, to Hubli, where Dara Hua Musalmans are pouring onto streets because some Hindu kid photoshopped a Bhagwa flag. From Aurangabad, where Dara Hua Musalmans are rioting in the streets because someone Facebook post said Aurangzeb was a mass murderer. To Assam, where Dara Hua Musalmans are burning down a police station. Everywhere you look, we see Dara Hua Musalmans, Dara Hua. So thank you, Mr. Ansari, for being an oracle. And who can forget him presenting an award to the most Dara Hua Musalman, the PFI chief himself. Now, let me come to the issue at hand. Rahul, as a free speech absolutist, I condemn all these FIRs, blanket condemnation that have been filed against people who didn't make direct threats, without exception. Although I do appreciate that in the case of Nupur and Naveen, it might have been done to avoid them being whisked away and dumped in non-BJP ruled states that are shamefully clamoring to torment them. And you're absolutely right. There is hypocrisy on show galore. These same chauthi-failed dunderheads wanted an FIR on Nupur, even though no one has till now explained why they think her quoting the hadiths is blasphemous. But when Owaisi is also charged, they are outraging. But then we've seen it all before, haven't we? The hypocrisy of this diabolical cult, the latest entrant to which is Mr. Naziruddin Shah. He stood with MF Hussain, if you remember, when he drew naked fornicating Hindu goddesses. But on Nupur he says, quote, the Indian government has acted too late. She was spreading poison. Her statement has hurt me, unquote. Itna doglapan kahan se laate ho Gulfam Hasan? I beg your pardon, Naziruddin Shah. Finally, Rahul, 30 seconds on Owaisi. Well, Owaisi thinks like his hero, doesn't he? Allama Iqbal, who said, quote, the mission of Islam is to purge the world of infidelity and worship of false gods, unquote. Rahul, fools are those who didn't understand Iqbal's mission and don't understand Owaisi's. We will either have a divided India or a destroyed India, had screamed Jinnah. He managed the former. Owaisi and his party are intent upon managing the latter. Owaisi is the Jinnah who doesn't eat bacon. Remember, he exhorted the annihilation of Kamlesh Tiwari. I quote him now. वो जालिम, वो कुत्ता जो उत्तर प्रदेश में बैठ के अल्लाह की शान में गुस्ताखी किया, याद रख, तू आज जेल में बंद है, मगर दुनिया तेरे लिए चूहे के बिल की तरह बन जाएगी इंशाअल्लाह. तेरी गुस्ताखी ने तेरी अपनी बर्बादी को दावत दी, unquote. And lo and behold, when Kamlesh Tiwari was ruthlessly beheaded, there was not a squeak of condemnation from Owaisi. And now he cries victimhood.
Well, viewers, we have to, as a nation, stop selectively shielding hate mongers, because calling out hate on one side is politically inconvenient. That cannot be. And that's really what Dr. Anand Ranganathan is saying with telling effect tonight. He says it quite bluntly. And truth always hurts, viewers. Remember that. It pinches. But we must rise above where we are going. Today we have hundreds and thousands of people who are otherwise very, very sensible, looking the other way, including some of the stars that Dr. Ranganathan has named, when people are going out there and saying, chop people's heads off. You see, we still have something called a law and a judicial system. And Atikur Rahman, I'm sure, you don't want to become part of the mob that advocates cutting off people's heads. I'm sure, Lokesh Jindal, your party didn't mean to stand with the ISF chief. I am sure you were pained that the great SDPI PFI withdrew its candidates against yours. I'm sure you must be really upset when Shadab Chauhan came out and hailed the Taliban for taking over Kabul. I am sure you were very, very upset, sir, when Sanjay Raut said voting rights of Muslims should be taken away. Lokesh Jindal Saab, it must upset you that Sanjay Raut said that. Did it upset you? Did it hurt you?
I'll tell you what had hurt me the most. What had hurt me the most was a person in Gujarat after the Godhra riots who said, "Hamare liye hum do, hamare do, aur unke liye hum char, hamare 40." And the person because of whom the BJP lost the elections and because of whom Atal Bihari Vajpayee was kicked out of BJP, goes on to become the Prime Minister of India, the role model for politicians, which young politicians like Nupur Sharma, Naveen Jindal wants to copy and thereby believe that spreading hatred all over the country brightens their political perspective. Now that's what has happened in this country. Since 2014, there has been some form of a competition going on amongst all the so-called wannabes who want to enter politics. That let us spread as much hate as possible.
Can I say something, if you don't mind? Can I say something, if you don't mind? If you don't mind. Only if you don't mind. Because when you start minding, I have to worry for my life. So only if you don't mind, I will say something. Can I say something?
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Okay, Mr. Jindal, I asked you a very simple question. You went on a rant against Modi. That is your prerogative. But you are today in power. with a party that mongers hate against people from Tamil Nadu. Dr. Ranganathan will tell you, he'll attest to that fact. As a Tamil, how it feels when the Shiv Sena stands and screeches against people who are outsiders, who come from the north, where Dr. Ranganathan works, or from Tamil Nadu, from where he hailed at one point.
I'm well aware of that.
So if you're well aware of it, what are you doing in power with the Shiv Sena? This god-awful, divisive force that you yourself... that you yourself defined. Your leaders have defined in the past. I'm not calling them god-awful. They themselves...
Let me tell you.
One second.
Let me tell you.
मैंने सवाल तो खत्म नहीं किया, sir. But I will quake and listen to you because you're a very powerful man and you can rouse people up against me and you will perhaps promote hate against me, so I'll keep quiet. Like a chua in the bill.
That's not my way, please.
Someone used that word, chua in the bill. I am very happy to be the chua in the bill. I don't want to stick my neck out over the parapet. बचेगा ही नहीं. तो मैं आपसे एक पूछना चाह रहा हूँ, लोकेश जिंदल साहब. It's a very simple question today. ठीक है, sir. Modi साहब became Prime Minister. You don't like him because you believe that he was one of the biggest instigators of riots. ठीक है, चलिए. Rajiv Gandhi also became Prime Minister and he justified violence against Sikhs. चलो, वो भी aberration था. Dumb voters did this. Very dumb voters did it. But sir, you are not dumb. You're the Congress party, the great Gandhian party. What are you doing with the Shiv Sena? Can you answer this question? Because Sanjay Raut said voting rights of Muslims should be taken away. In my book, that's a pretty hateful statement.
So here is the answer. The time when Shiv Sena formed an alliance with the Congress, that was the time period when Amit Shah was doing all forms of his Chanakya Niti. And Maharashtra was well aware of the centralization tendency of BJP. Now, erstwhile, Shiv Sena had been a BJP alliance partner, but then it chose Congress because it is well aware of how dangerous BJP is and its centralization tendency. And if you talk about NCP,
Jindal
Shiv Sena and Congress coming
as
together,
dangerous as the other Jindal. I'll tell you, you are as dangerous.
Please do not include me in those league of people at all. Just because I share the surname with them.
You can easily, you are as dangerous because you, no, 1 minute, you are mainstreaming. You are mainstreaming the antics of fringe players. In my book, anyone who says voting rights of Muslims should be taken away belongs to the fringe. And if you are bringing them into the center to defeat the BJP, what does that make you? You are conceding.
Sir, first of all,
tomorrow you will hold hands. Tomorrow you will hold hands with Yasin Malik.
But
I forgot. You did hold hands with Yasin Malik. Oh, sorry.
It came out with the
I made a mistake. My facts were wrong. You did hold hands with Yasin Malik. Where will you go? Where will you go to prove a point against Modi? How far will you go?
Yasin Malik was always supported by BJP, and we all know
always
that.
Supported. Viewers, here you have a very eloquent spokesperson of the Congress party. Today he is not quoting Heidegger. Remember, he is not quoting some of the other Nordic scholars that he does very often on this channel.
I'm fine with it if you're ready to hear.
No, I don't, sir. I'll be very confused because clearly, sir,
don't be confused.
There is nothing philosophical about your thoughts. You are a rank opportunist, and you have proved it.
Absolutely not, sir.
Okay,
so the
absolutely
whole
not.
Is
fair enough. I don't want to constantly focus on you, Mr. Jindal. Clearly, you don't have answers to give. Let me open this up further.
You give me the time, I'll answer every question of yours.
Sir, you have answered the questions by evading each one of them, and I'm happy that you can evade these questions.
Any question that you have asked.
I have asked you all 3 questions. You have still not told me.
Please allow me to answer.
You have said, no, you already answered.
Sir,
and your answers are eloquent. You have said to stop Modi. We have drunk the wish of hatred. And we have decided to hold hands with the Shiv Sena. That is your answer.
The idea of India that BJP embarks upon is a
so fair enough. No, you can hold
language,
the. Okay, so fine. Mr. Jindal, it's okay. Let me move on. Please, let me move on. You answer the question. You've been honest. Ki bhai, to stop Modi, we have clung on to Shiv Sena. It's okay. We understand your compulsions. It's okay. गद्दी के लिए कुछ भी करेगा कांग्रेस, दैट्स फाइन, इट्स ओके।
सर देश के हित के
लिए, देश के हित के लिए आप उनके हाथ पकड़ोगे जो देश को विभाजित करना चाहते हैं। मैं भी थोड़ी बहुत हिंदी बोल लेता हूं। ओके, लेट्स ओपन दिस अप फर्दर, लेट्स ओपन इट अप फर्दर। let's ask the basic question again. Atikur Rahman Saab, how is 100% accountability one-sidism? Can you explain, if we were to arrest Mr. Ganai, Adil Ganai, who you just heard, giving a very eloquent address from the mosque in Jammu, would it be one-sidism, sir? Tell me. Would be arresting someone who describes and dishonors the shivling be one-sided action, sir? Simple two questions. I have nothing more to ask. Atikur Saab, please.
Mr. Rahul, as in my capacity as a lecturer in political science and researcher on Islamic studies, I have 2 points to make.
Sir, one question before you finish. No, before you finish, I just want you to tell us where, because there is an individual called Zubair, something or the other, I don't know his name. He has a great problem. Every time you call a person on the show and call him an Islamic scholar, he gets very worked up. So can you just tell our viewers how you call yourself an Islamic scholar, which university you do research at, so your credentials are established so that people like some Zubair, some character, I don't know, some internet player or whatever it is, I think he might even be a video game designer, I don't quite know what he is, but he does make quite a bit of an impression. So I just want to ask you to clarify your bona fides.
Well, Zubair is partly right, because many times I have corrected many channels that I am not an Islamic scholar, Rahul. I am a researcher on Islamic studies on the basis of, as a lecturer in political science, I had 2 subjects in my final year, BA, that was Islamic studies and political science. I am a master's in political science from the Bombay University.
Wonderful.
I am a researcher. I was the research assistant of world-renowned Islamic scholar Dr. Rafiq Zakaria, who replied to Salman Rushdie's satanic verses. I have several books when Dr. Rafiq Zakaria used to write those books, my name has a mention in those books.
Right. Sir, you are eminently more qualified than me, and therefore we welcome you on this panel as a bona fide spokesperson, and I congratulate you, sir, on the great achievements. Now can you answer my question? Thank you very much.
Rahul, along with this, I would like to clarify also that I do not represent even my neighbors as a Muslim.
Okay.
In my capacity as an individual, I speak whatever I have read, whatever I have researched.
Brilliant.
So point number 1 is, as far as the shivling is concerned, the Quran mentions, Rahul, do not revile the other faiths, lest they revile your faith in their ignorance. Second point is, it is incumbent on me to place before your audience that blasphemy in the Quran is only for Allah. Allah dislikes blasphemy, joining Allah's name with any other person, any other deity, any other God. La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God, Allah. Prophet, for the Prophet, there cannot be any blasphemy. We, as an Islamic researcher, we invite criticism against the Prophet, because when Salman Rushdie wrote the book, Dr. Zakaria wrote to Rajiv Gandhi's government, do not bend it, because he was very much to reply to the satanic verses, and he replied in the form of a book called Muhammad and the Quran, a reply to the satanic verses by Dr. Rafiq Zakaria. So we as Islamic researchers, we invite criticism against the Quran, we invite criticism against our Prophet and Allah, so that we can reply.
But you have made it very clear.
The only condition is we should get a fair chance to reply.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Rahman, you have made it, however, very, very clear that you do not believe that your faith allows anyone to revile another's faith. That you have made very clear. So, people that are being booked today for reviling the shivling or the other faiths in this country, they are being booked as per the law, there is no vendetta against them. Will you concede that point, Atikur Rahman Saab?
200%, but I would like to add a point.
So viewers, here you have a very erudite man, Atikur Rahman, who we respect for his great intellect, for the work he has done, calling out Owaisi,
10 seconds.
calling out Owaisi as a person who is playing a political game. Dr. Ranganathan, give me just 2 minutes. I also want to bring in Advocate Talla Rashidi, spokesperson for the Rashtriya Ulema Council. Now, Mr. Rashidi, you heard Atikur Rahman and he made it quite clear to all of us that what Mr. Owaisi indirectly is saying is wrong, that the insults against the Shivlings are wrong and the people who are being booked for insulting the Shivling deserve to be punished. And also, sir, that people like Mr. Ganai, Adil Ganai, deserve to go to jail, and it is not Islamophobic to send them to jail. Advocate Tala, Amir, please go ahead.
See, I'm not a spokesperson for Mr. Owaisi. That is the first thing. The other thing is that I don't know what are the charges under which Mr. Owaisi has been booked, so I cannot reply on that. And as far as the other thing is concerned, I would like to say that anyone, it can be anyone, it can be any XYZ, it can be Talha Amir, it can be it can be Rahul, it can be anyone who does an act that is against the law of the land, an act that hurts the feelings of the masses, an act that could be called as a hate speech, should be booked as per the law.
So,
what's the big deal in it? Why are we creating a havoc out of it?
No, I'm not.
Now the case that has been booked today,
do you believe?
Step,
no, 1
this
second.
Step should have been taken.
Right, I got it.
10 or 15 days back.
I'm glad you've taken such an. I'm glad you've taken an enlightened position. Amir Saab, 1 minute. एक मिनट आमिर साहब मैं आपको पढ़ के बताता हूं जस्ट टेल मी व्हाट पार्ट ऑफ दिस यू डिसएग्री विद सी आई एम नॉट आस्किंग यू टू बी अ स्पोक्सपर्सन फॉर ओवेसी आप एडवोकेट भी हैं सो लेट मी जस्ट आस्क यू दिस इज व्हाट ओवेसी सेज cops are suffering from both sadism or balancewad syndrome. Now he's not talking about just him being booked, he's talking about, as I told you, other people who have also been booked like Sabah Naqvi and several others, Mr. Qureshi, etc. So what is one-sided or balancewad about booking these people? If prima facie,
exactly what I'm saying, it's a balancewad.
How?
I didn't read his tweet. I don't know what he said, but this is exactly an attempt to balance the activities that
okay, Rashmi Samant, you can go ahead and ridicule the Shivling, and if people who do so are booked, then it's balancewad. It is okay. So great.
This is an attempt to balance that.
Okay, it's an attempt to balance. Fair enough. So let those people who are abusing the Shivling not suffer any consequences under the Indian laws, because if you do, then it is balancewad. Rashmi Samant, how do you respond to Tala Saab?
It's almost like, you know, one rule for me, another for thee. For a very long time now, since independence, the minorities have actually shoved down pattarbazi, all kinds of, you know, blasphemous, these kinds of punishments for blasphemy, beheading threats down the throats of the majority community in the name of tolerance. And for a very long time, the community has actually, you know, ingested these things in the name of tolerance. Ki haan, hum tolerant hain. So for this very thing, we've been accepting these things. We've been taking it lying down. But for the very first time, when there's equal resistance to you know what's going on, and when everybody is treated the same, the minority suddenly want special treatment.
Okay.
And the fact that they're not getting
no question of special treatment, says Rashmi Samant. Let me bring in. Amna Begum Ansari also. Miss Ansari, where do you come in on this? Do you believe that a crackdown? 1 second, Advocate Saab, please. Now let the other participant also speak, please. Sir, आपने बहुत बोला, कितना बोला आपने? अब Amna मैडम को भी थोड़ा बोलने दीजिए, please. Amana, 1 second. Amana Begum Ansari, I'm coming to you and I want to ask you. Do you believe that booking others who have ridiculed the Shivling is an act of Islamophobia, yes or no?
Definitely not.
this should be this should how any government should take the action, and there should be same yardstick for every community regardless the identity.
Okay.
If criticizing one community and one religion is a freedom of speech, so that should be applied to other community, or it both should be hate speech. We cannot go like this by selectively say that this is the freedom of speech and this is the
freedom of speech cannot be selective.
Yeah, and
it's a very clear message.
Rahul, yeah, yes, give me 30 seconds. I want to speak few points. So the point is that the government already has suspended Nupur Sharma. So you can say that the grievances of the minority or the second largest community has already been addressed. The point is, we as a community, Muslim community, how we are going to tackle and address this issue of the blasphemy or hurt sentiment. Are we going to take the legal route, or we are going to call for the violence? And make no mistake that these people don't know that the Muslim society is not evolved enough right now. There are a lot of and many examples where you have seen that people get killed for the blasphemy. And I believe that the Islamist and communist ecosystem is right now weaponizing this blasphemy against their opponent. This is not only about the religion, there is politics going on.
I salute you, Ms. Ansari. Don't say too much. Don't say too much. You know the consequences. And we are worried today. All of us are worried today, because if you say too much and it is adjudged too much, then you might lose your head.
I am just talking as a Muslim. We have to come forward.
I'm talking as an Indian. I always speak as an Indian. There is a constitution and there is a law. Dr. Ranganathan, very quickly, before I wrap this up. No, don't abuse her now. Please lower everyone's fader. Not right. Yes. Dr. Ranganathan, very quickly, I need to move on. Yes.
Yes, just very quickly, 2 points on what my good friend Mr. Atikur Rahman said. And I hope he doesn't interrupt me, because I'm going to be very kind and affectionate towards him. I'm going to compliment him. So, Mr. Rahman, please don't interrupt me. On first point, let me slightly correct you. When you said that on blasphemy, in the Quran, the mention is only that if you blaspheme against Allah. That's not correct. Because 3357 says, and I quote, "Those who abuse Allah and His Messenger, Allah has cursed them in this world and the hereafter and prepared for them a humiliating punishment." And if you remember what Mr. Khomeini, in his fatwa against Rushdie, he interpreted abuse as waging a war. He said it clearly. And then follows 533 that says, indeed, the penalties for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and strive upon earth to cause corruption is none but that they be killed or crucified, or that their hands and feet be cut off from opposite sides, and that they be exiled from the land. So you are factually wrong there. But let me come and compliment you right now. So please don't interrupt me. I'm going to compliment you. Rahul, I have to say this, that people like Mr. Atikur Rahman are, in this cruel world, the ideal Muslims. And I'll tell you why. Because even the Muslims don't listen to him. Mr. Atikur Rahman says that all those violent verses in the Quran that are against polytheists and Christians and Jews and apostates, infidels, are for the infidels and Christians and Jews and polytheists of that time. They don't apply to those billion-odd Christians and Hindus and polytheists of this time. But all the good verses, benevolent verses of Islam, of Quran, he says follows for everyone. So there is this dichotomy that he has to solve for himself. But the tragedy is that 1.8 billion Muslims don't believe Mr. Rahman.
Well,
they think that all those verses against the Kafirs apply to the Kafirs right now.
Sure. No, but Doctor, 1 second. At least we have in a panel of 3 of our brothers and sisters from the Muslim community, 2 that are at least agreeing with each other on these draconian punishments. And they are saying that let's follow the Indian law. So this is very important, viewers. Very, very important. I just hope the message goes out and no harm comes to you. I salute you as an Indian, as a constitutionalist. God bless. Let's move on, viewers. Let's move on, because there is an important story from Tamil Nadu. So once again, drawn the ire of Chief Pontiff of Madurai, Adhinam Deziga Paramacharya. The religious leader trained guns at Dravidian Netas and accused them of being anti-Hindu and pandering to Muslims. He said that while Dravidian politicians refuse to accept vibhuti or sacred ashes at temple, they wear skull caps during Ramazan, which is a clear attempt at appeasement. Let's listen in.
நாங்கள் திராவிட பாரம்பரியம் என்று சொல்கிறார்கள். விபூதி பூச மறுக்கிறார்கள், விபூதி கீழே கொட்டுகிறார்கள். ரம்ஜானும்னா குல்லா போட்டுக்கிறானுங்க, கஞ்சி கொடுத்துக்கிறானுங்க.
Now, viewers, the increasing friction between DMK government in Tamil Nadu and devotees is becoming palpable. Just recently, a DMK leader, R. Rajiv Gandhi, issued a shocking call to kill all Brahmins. Gandhi, who is also party's spokesperson, said that Shudras wouldn't have had to struggle for their rights if they had killed Brahmins, as directed by Dravidian icon Periyar. The opposition AIDMK also slammed Stalin's party, calling it anti-Brahminical. The party even took on late Karunanidhi, accusing him of pulling holy thread worn by Brahmins. Now, viewers, former Union Minister and BJP leader Subramanian Swamy, Dr. Swamy, called the remarks atrocious and has written to the poll panel seeking the cancellation of DMK's registration. Now, Dr. Subramanian Swamy is here with us. Dr. Swamy, under what context is the DMK anti-Brahmin, according to you, and why do you want their symbol, etc., cancelled?
Well, the DMK or its parent DK, they have been always against Brahmins because they were created by the British to oppose the freedom movement. And the Brahmins, of course, I personally don't believe there's anything called a born Brahmin. But anyway, because Brahmins are gunas according to the Bhagavad Gita. But anyway, those who are identified as Brahmins, they were the ones who led the freedom struggle. Rajagopalacharya was one example. There were many other examples that I can give you, but the important thing is that everybody will agree. The Brahmins brought up Kamaraj, who was a complete illiterate, brought him up. Satyamurthy, who happens to be my father's grand uncle, he built the Congress Party, and today Congress Party's office is in the name of Satyamurthy Bhavan, and he was the one who reared up Kamaraj. So the British targeted the Brahmins from day one because they felt that their intellectual influence was too much, and Tamil Nadu could not be, fully assimilated as the British Empire, part of the British Empire, unless that happens. That's the background. So today's the DMK is just continuing that legacy, and they are using this Brahmin thing is a way, because the Brahmins are now so weak that they can't respond. So you can say anything you like. Now, how can you say, even whether if it's not a Brahmin, it's a scheduled caste or any other caste, how can you say that there should be a genocide? I mean, they use the words which the Nuremberg trials condemned, and condemned Hitler for using the German word for it. So I'm asking you that in this democratic civilized world, how can you possibly put up with a political party which is registered with the Election Commission and contests the elections and gets all the benefits of the state for having a large number of candidates? That party now says that the Brahmins should be not prosecuted, but to be killed in a mass killing. That's what he means by genocide. So I think, therefore, the party has to be brought to book, because he's our office bearer, and the president or the head of the party, Mr. Stalin, who doesn't have a Tamil name but a Russian name, he has not taken any action against him. So therefore, they don't deserve to be part of our democracy.
Well, Dr. Swamy, eloquently summing up his arguments that he has made before the Election Commission in a letter. Thank you very much Dr. Swami. I'm going to take a very short break. I'll be right back, viewers, with another big story. Don't go away.
Times now. Action begins here.
Relook at the evidence that is coming out in the context of the Kanpur riot. Even as one leader after the other from the opposition ranks is coming out to offer cover fire to the poster boys of hate and rioting in Kanpur, the truth is finding more ways of emerging. Times Now has accessed fresh footage of vicious violence that was unleashed on the streets of Baconganj in Kanpur, and more importantly, images that show precisely who were the perpetrators. Carefully watch the CCTV camera on a street, and it has captured people indulging in rampant stone pelting and vandalism. One of them even tries to cover his face while doing so, probably realizing that his face may be captured and will be on the next billboard because he will be prosecuted by the state for rioting. Now, this is most likely since there were also videos showing attempts to destroy the cameras. Now, let me make it clear. This is a video captured by a CCTV camera, not shot on a mobile phone by any individual. So it is highly unlikely that it would only capture one side of the story, that it would somehow automatically only move towards those from one community and capture their transgressions. It is clear as day who was running rampage on the roads. Yet there are leaders like Owaisi who choose to adopt a blinkered view. Listen to what he says.
अरे जब पत्थर फेंकता है तो दो तरफ से पत्थर फेंके जाते हैं, एक तरफ से पत्थर नहीं फेंका जाता, दो तरफ से पत्थर फेंके जाते हैं। और पुलिस का काम यह है कि जो पत्थर फेंकता उसको उठाओ आप, मगर यहां पर नहीं यही लोग किए, यही किए, यही पत्थर फेंके, पेट्रोल बम बनाए, व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप बनाए। याद रखो, ये कहानी बहुत पुरानी हो चुकी है, इस कहानी को बदलो। तुम 40 साल से सिर्फ यही कहानी, नहीं मुसलमानी फेंका, मुसलमानी किया, तो क्या सब क्या दूसरे दूध के धुले हुए हैं? मगर आप देखो कोई आवाज नहीं उठाता। उत्तर प्रदेश में समाजवादी के नेताओं के, उनके लीडर के मुंह में दही जम चुकी है, जबान नहीं खोलते।
You've heard Mr. Owaisi once again misinforming members of the community, silently poisoning their view of events and, of course, their faith in the state. I want to bring in Mr. Jindal. Mr. Jindal, I know you're from the Congress and you hate the MIM because you believe that the MIM is eating into your vote bank, and Mr. Owaisi, of course, has no love lost for the Congress party. But that aside, I just want to ask you a more basic question. I won't get into asking you to agree with Owaisi or disagree, but I just want to ask you, Mr. Jindal, are CCTVs also communal?
Was that the question?
Yeah, the question is, I'll give you the context if you haven't understood it.
Yes.
What is being said is that the crackdown in Kanpur is intensely communal. It is only against one community, and it's only against the Muslim community. Now, the cases are being developed on the back of what is being found on CCTV footage. So clearly the evidence must also be communal or communally tinted. Now, that is why I'm asking you, are CCTVs communal?
No, CCTVs are not communal. In Kanpur, even the Bharatiya Yuva Morcha, one BJP person, Harshit Shrivastava, I think he is also arrested. So the point is, any form of communal violence that occurs anywhere in the country is condemned by Congress, and nowhere we support any form of violence. Congress believes in non-violence, satyagraha, and we do not support any form of a violent act, be it by any community. And subsequently, what has been the policy of Uttar Pradesh government? Now, is it going to do away with the issue, or is it going to instigate further violence? This is what is of a grave concern to us. Now, this selective crackdown that is being done by showing a particular community responsible for violence and one particular community as simply not being involved in it is something which creates a distorted picture, a half-truth, which is adding insult to injury.
Okay.
The point is, these two people, Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal, both of them, they had a major role to play in causing communal tensions. Yes, action must be taken against those who are resorting to violence, but a deterrent, an example must be set that anybody who provokes people is also punished equally. They are not let off loosely.
Dr. Ranganathan, yes.
Very quickly, 3 points, Rahul. But first of all, I have to agree that Mr. Owaisi is absolutely right this time round, and you are being an Islamophobic. So is Times Now, because these are clearly Dara Hua Musalmans, and they are not protesting against demanding the beheading of Nupur Sharma. They are protesting against the hike in petrol prices. You can very clearly see they are stoning and going to light that motorbike because they're saying petrol itna महंगा है, हम bike का क्या करेंगे? So please, let us not spread any misinformation here. This is a completely different thing. But can I be serious here? My good friend Mr. Jindal has contradicted himself twice already within a space of a minute. He says such selective targeting is condemnable, but 10 seconds before that he says even a BJP कार्यकर्ता has been arrested. तो भैया ये कौन सी selective targeting है? And number two, when he says that he is almost justifying, no, please don't interrupt. No, one second. You are at liberty. You are at liberty to embarrass yourself and answer all my questions after I'm done. Please, Naveen. Please, thank you.
Okay. Right, please.
But I'm not done yet. Let me expose you a little bit further. थोड़ा सा और.
Okay.
थोड़ा सा. मैं UA से अब A में जाने वाला हूँ. थोड़ा और expose करने वाला हूँ. Rahul, when Mr. Jindal says that hate mongering Nupur and Mr. Jindal, his namesake, the action should be taken, it is incumbent upon him, rather than spread fake news and hatred on his own, to say what was blasphemous. Was quoting hadiths blasphemous? Now you can reply, Mr. Jindal, at your leisure.
Yes, first of all, when you told me that about selective targeting, it is not me alone. Editors Guild of India itself, it has released a statement whereby it has stated that certain vulnerable minorities are being targeted.
Editors Guild, yes.
Secondly, when you are talking about these two people, Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal, both of them, they lack some form of a qualification, or I would say a decent knowledge information base, so as to come out in a public platform and utter statements which has in fact affected religious communities. And secondly, when you're talking about BJP now, is BJP's decision so as to dismiss Naveen Jindal and suspend Nupur Sharma appeasement of minorities? No. It is the Dari Hui Bhajpa. Okay. Because the fire that the Bhajpa has spread, it is finding it very difficult to douse now.
Okay. Dr. Ranganathan, yes, 30 seconds. I'm ending this show right after. Yes.
Yes, no, by Mr. Jindal's logic, nobody should be able to comment on Islam or Quran, even quote the Hadiths, except the Maulanas and Imams. That is ridiculous. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. Are you telling me that you can't talk on science and I can't talk on law? Come on, I mean, this is unfair.
Sir, you can obviously talk on, but then there is a platform and there is a manner in which things are to be addressed.
What I should say or what not say.
Sir, freedom of speech and expression is with reasonable restrictions.
Absolutely. Look, one second. I just want to step in. You know, someone referred to the Editors Guild of India. I think they're releasing a statement against the Stalin government, hopefully, because one of the DMK people talked about eliminating a large number of Brahmins. We'll wait for that statement. I'm sure it's coming. Any moment now, it'll be faxed to all of us. You'll be reading it in tomorrow morning.
It's not guild.
It's not. Okay. Well, you know, different people have different views. Look, viewers, unfortunately today, people selectively cherry pick. Guilds, groups, gangs, they all do. Here on this channel, we bring you the side that you will not hear, based on facts. You can choose. You can choose. I'll leave it at that. The news are coming up.
Times now. Action begins here.
क्या पूछूं आपसे कि आपका जो स्टे था कांग्रेस पार्टी में, ये शॉर्ट एंड स्वीट था कि हॉट एंड सावर था?
जब राजनीति में कोई फैसले होते हैं मैडम जी, तब एक बात बहुत तय होती है कि लोगों के हित के लिए, जनता की सेवा के लिए ये फैसला होना चाहिए, और उसी को देखते हुए ये फैसला लिया गया था। लेकिन जहां गए, जिस कांग्रेस पार्टी पर भरोसा किया, उनके नेताओं पर जो भरोसा किया, उससे एक बात तो तय हो गई थी कि ना ये जन सेवा करना चाहते और ना कोई करता है उसको रोकने का काम करते हैं। जो जन सेवा करना चाहता है उसको रोक दो, हम नहीं करना चाहते तो हमारे साथ जुड़ जाओ। और ये काम हम नहीं कर सकते थे। हम आंदोलन के जरिए निकले थे, लोगों ने हम पर उम्मीद देखी थी, हम पर भरोसा किया था, और हमने कहीं ना कहीं गुजरात के भीतर एक अच्छी उम्मीद को खड़ा करने का काम किया था, जो कांग्रेस को इनडायरेक्टली डायरेक्टली 2017 में फायदा किया था और मजबूत विपक्ष की भूमिका में आई थी। लेकिन आज कहां हुआ, ना आपको मीटिंग में बुलाते हैं, आपको वर्किंग प्रेसिडेंट बना दिया, लेकिन कोई काम आपका तय ना किया। कहीं ना कहीं सिर्फ अपमान। और हमारे परिवार में और हमारे कई साथी कहते हैं कि अगर जहां सम्मान ना हो वहां अपमान नहीं होना चाहिए।
तो हार्दिक जी, ये सब आपको पहले से पता नहीं था? क्योंकि 2017 आप पॉलिटिक्स में आए थे और 2019 का चुनाव हुआ था, आप बहुत जगह साथ साथ घूमे थे, क्योंकि आपने फॉर्मली कांग्रेस पार्टी ज्वाइन कर ली थी। और हमेशा से लोग यही कहते हैं कि कांग्रेस पार्टी एक प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी ओन्ड बाय एक गांधी परिवार है। तो आपको पहले ये पता नहीं था या अंदर जाके कुछ ऐसा पता चला जो आप
Times now. Action begins here.
For the last 2 years, the world has been relentlessly fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. As the countries across the globe prioritize vaccinations to keep the next wave of COVID at bay, India also rolled out precautionary jabs this year to achieve herd immunity against the virus. While COVID has not risen substantially in India in the last few months, the pandemic has not yet faded. India has remained on guard, but vaccination among children remains low and is significantly less talked about.
Immunizing the kids will not only check the spread of the asymptomatic infections, who can act as silent hosts for the virus, and which will lead to again spread in the society, but again it can also mitigate the severity, the intensity of the infection in children. Now that the schools have reopened, it is very important that the children are vaccinated. A lot of parents are still hesitant about sending the children to school, but definitely children should no longer stay at home. They should definitely go to school. And so to vaccinate them, by vaccinating them, we can allay this fear in the parents' mind. Almost 40% of pediatric deaths below the age of 20 years were in the age group of 0 to 9 years. Majority of infection in children are asymptomatic infection. Almost 70 to 80% of children have very minimal infections or they remain asymptomatic. Want to check the spread of the virus. Almost 60 to 65% of the adult population has been fully vaccinated.
The news are at 9, co-powered by JK Tyre.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We live in a country that is driven by secular principles. All citizens, irrespective of their caste and religion, are equal in the eyes of the law, which is why the crackdown on those trying to tarnish the secular fabric of this country is totally uniform. The Delhi police has filed FIRs across the ideological divide to prosecute all those who have made bigoted hate comments, be it through their comments or their tweets or expressions on social media. Hate mongers from all communities have been named in these FIRs. From Nupur Sharma and Yati Narsinghanand to Asaduddin Owaisi and hate preacher Mufti Nadi. But But many in the opposition believe that some are probably more equal than the others. AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi took to Twitter to put out 11 tweets questioning the action against him. He questioned why he was booked when the police couldn't even specify what comment of his had attracted the FIR. Well, that's his right to know what exactly is his crime that is being pulled up for. But he didn't stop at that. Owaisi called this crackdown a fake balance war. Another person named in the FIR, a political analyst leaning towards the AIMIM too, echoed a similar sentiment. Listen in to what he said in his defense.
अभी तक किसी प्रकार की कोई जानकारी नहीं मिली। मीडिया के माध्यम से, टाइम्स नाउ चैनल के माध्यम से मुझे ये पता चला है कि भाई कुछ 30-31 लोगों के खिलाफ मामले दर्ज हुए हैं। उन 30-31 लोगों में एक मेरा भी नाम है। दरअसल दिक्कत क्या है कि हेट स्पीचर्स को काउंटर देना और हेट स्पीचर्स होना, इन दोनों चीज़ों में फ़र्क है। हम हमारे देश में देख रहे हैं कि किस तरह हेट्रेड फैलाने वालों को रिवॉर्ड दिया गया भारतीय जनता पार्टी की तरफ से। आप देख लीजिए, नंबर ऑफ क्रिमिनल्स, साध्वी प्रज्ञा हो, चाहे दिल्ली राइट्स के आरोपी हों, वो सारे लोग किस तरह से भारतीय जनता पार्टी में जुड़ते हैं। जो लोग नफरत की राजनीति करते हैं, उनके बड़े बड़े सांसद पब्लिकली स्टेटमेंट देते हैं गोली मारो को, तो उनके नाम नहीं आते। उनके खिलाफ इंसाफ के हक में बोलने वालों को हेट स्पीचर्स की लिस्ट में डाला जा रहा है। ये बहुत बड़ा मतलब अफसोसनाक बात है।
Now, Danish Qureshi is not the only one who's questioning this crackdown. And even now, selectivism seems to be the argument even at this point. First, the charge was that it is selective action against a certain community, to now the charge being selective action to put up a facade of balance. So you're damned if you balance, you're damned if you are one-sided. So is the opposition wanting us to believe that no action is impartial? Because even today, the action that is being taken in another case has triggered a fierce war of words with a templated response that only Muslims are targeted in this country. Listen in.
बजाय इसके कि उनके खिलाफ एक्शन होता तो मुसलमान को तसल्ली हो जाती कि भाई इन्होंने अगर हमारे रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के खिलाफ कोई गुस्ताखी की है तो गवर्नमेंट ने उस पर एक्शन लिया। ये काम नहीं किया, बल्कि मुसलमानों के खिलाफ कार्रवाई शुरू कर दी। ये मुनासिब नहीं है।
जो लोग भी इसमें शामिल होंगे उनके खिलाफ उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार निश्चित तरीके से कार्रवाई करेगी, क्योंकि किसी को भी दंगा करने की इजाज़त नहीं है। और विपक्ष अगर जो है या अल्पसंख्यक समाज के वो लीडर या मौलाना जो ये बात कर रहे हैं, वो उनको दंगाइयों को बचाने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं।
So the legitimate question I want to ask on the Newshour tonight: hate halted, but politics carries on. That's the question, and that's the debate. Arrest hate hypocrisy. That's the hashtag and the debate on the other side.
You're watching the Newshour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining me on the debate tonight is Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the ORF, Suhail Seth, Marketing Guru, Karan Verma, author, Tehseen Poonawala, Political Analyst, Sanjay Jha, author, and Majid Haidri, political activist. And Majid Haidri, my first question goes to you. Majid Haidri, even as we speak about a crackdown, Asaduddin Owaisi Sahab comes out. He's a barrister. He comes out and questions that, I don't even know my crime. Well, that's his right. But he also comes out and says that this is an agenda by those people who made Yogi Adityanath the chief minister. I want to ask you, in a democracy like India, can you even use arguments of this kind to play a victim card? Was Yogi Adityanath made a chief minister, or did he win elections? Did the people of Uttar Pradesh make him the chief minister? Are elections contested, and do people vote for people, or do you think they just happen to come there because they belong to a certain religion? And all kinds of statements that are being made. Shouldn't everybody who was saying this toxic content that's floating around in the atmosphere today laud the fact that there is strict action that is being taken and an example is being made out of people who have resorted to call each other names and push the hate narrative.
Navika Sahiba, it was supposed to be a proud moment for every Indian because the pace of Vikas in our country has made it to the Guinness Book of World Records that we have constructed world's fastest ever road. And credit goes to Honorable Prime Minister Ji and Nitin Gadkari for that matter. But unfortunately, we are discussing the same old story, which is the better color, the saffron or the green. And here we forget that both constitute our tricolor. I have a very humble submission. Why is it that always Muslims alone get demonized after every riot? Talib Hussain, Tahir Hussain after Delhi riots, Sonu Chilka after Delhi riots, Muslims in Rajasthan, and now Muslim posters being circulated in Kanpur in UP. Why is it all the time that only Muslims, the emotional outburst of a Muslim is seen through the prism of terror, that his emotional outburst of pelting a pebble is seen through terror funding? Why is every act of Indian Muslim and natural behavior being seen as an act of terror and probed through the prism of terror? This is all the way injustice with the Muslim community. We are being marginalized, we are being pushed to the wall for no fault of any Indian. This is dirty politics which needs to end, and that is our humble submission. We have no issues with any party. We appreciate the recent decisions taken by BJP. I even appreciate Mohan Bakhpaji for having come to the rescue of Muslims. But the problem is that the dirty side of saffron politics has got so deep-rooted that we have a trouble across the country, and innocent Muslims get jeopardized, demonized, emotional outbursts, which could be true for Hindu or Muslim.
Emotional outburst. Now, Sushant Sareen, number one, if only Muslims are being, filed FIRs against, then maybe in our jails there is 100% Muslim occupation because sirf Muslims par hi hota hai. So the 35-40% or whatever statistics that are there should be completely disregarded, and we should believe that it's 100%. And number two, emotional outburst, stone pelting and trying to attack the police. Is that an emotional outburst? Should it be seen like that? Respond to Majid Hydari's statement.
Yeah, so Navika, look, number one, I think people like Mr. Hydari need to get out of this victim psychosis in which they are and they are pushing their community into. Because we've seen enough of this victim card play out. The bottom line is this: when there was a congregation in Haridwar, and there were some hate speeches made out there, nobody took it lying down. There was massive outrage in media across the board. To say that only Muslims are being singled out for in this particular case, number one, nobody was chucking pebbles. Right? You are doing stone pelting and you are rioting on the streets. Number two, there are blood-curdling calls for beheading and murder. To say that this is an emotional outburst, well then, gentlemen, keep your emotions in check. If you have a problem, go file a case. But, Navika, there is another problem. I do not subscribe to this nonsense that, look, if you are now taking action, you need to balance it out. I think that's the worst way to implement law. What you need to make sure is that law is not applied in a biased manner. But to say that I am going to now, if I'm I'm filing a case against 10 Muslims, then I must also bring in 10 Hindus, I must bring in 10 Sikhs, 10 Christians. That is utter nonsense. That's not the way you run a country.
If it's 10 Muslims,
if there is somebody who has done wrong, please penalize him regardless of what faith he comes from. The third point I want to make, Navika, is the most important. We are a country where a young politician like Tajinder Bagga makes, or some actress in Maharashtra makes a comment on a political leader, either the chief minister or their, the head of the coalition. They make a comment, maybe they lampoon a person. You throw the book at them, you put them in jail for over a month. You send the Punjab police, which has enough of fighting terrorism.
No, when was Tajinder Bagga in jail for 1 month?
So that you can give him the ragda in the jail.
I do not want anybody to speak over anybody because Majid Hydari, I don't know. Somebody will slip in some hate speech and I won't be able to hear it. Neither will my viewers, and suddenly somebody will take out a clip and throw troll us till the cows come home. So please, this is my disclaimer tonight. Do not speak over each other, because if you do, I'm going to lower your fader. Then don't cry that your freedom of speech has been taken away. Because when you speak over each other, it's the anchor which is in hot water, because I can't hear who's saying what, and I'm telling instructions to my director कि भाई क्या बोल रहे हैं, and you know, a lot gets lost in translation. So kindly hold your horses. Everybody will get an opportunity, but don't speak over each other, because I'm going to lower faders of people who interrupt. Sushant Sareen, last 30 seconds to you.
Yeah, so you know, we come down like a ton of bricks on these people. We put them in jail for over a month. There is no, you know, recourse. There is no relief from courts. And then you have a case where there are people openly inciting violence, openly calling for murder, openly, you know, rioting. And all you have is an FIR in which you do monkey balancing. I don't think that's the way to go about it. The FIR, I have nothing against the FIR. But if you have now filed the FIR, then please take it to the logical conclusion. Please prosecute these people who are damaging the social fabric by indulging in hate speech. And I don't care who it is. And one last point, Navika, and it's an advice to you and you know, other fellow people in the journalism community. Please don't mainstream fringe voices. You know, that is, I think, one of the big problems which we are going through, that you are amplifying fringe voices and you are mainstreaming fringe voices and you are ignoring the mainstream. Well, my sincere advice to you is that we can have a very strong and reasoned debate without indulging in hate speech.
May I tell you, some of these statements are made by bona fide representatives of bona fide political parties. They are bona fide organizations. They are bona fide sometimes journalists. So I don't know where to get a thermometer to check everybody. I don't know which is the certification authority that will decide. I don't invite Swami Yatinanand or whoever you know is accused, but who knows who's going to say what. And some people just come and speak in the middle, and sometimes you know, it's an occupational hazard that you can't hear. Just as in the previous case, I was anchoring from Srinagar, where the internet quality was really bad that time, and I managed to miss a few words just because you know, the internet quality wasn't so good. But then I'm the one who's crucified. But well, you know, everybody's got to watch their words, and everybody's got to be civil with each other. And Tehseen Poonawala, we've had differences in opinion. We say a lot of things, and that's what debate and discussions are all about. But to first begin from the premise that you know, everything is unjustified, you should only not target me. It's almost like the Amitabh Bachchan dialogue in Diwar, which says पहले उसका signature लेके आओ जिसने मेरे हाथ पर ये लिख दिया था कि मेरा बाप चोर है, फिर मैं जवाब दूंगा. You know, this is not a Hindi film that we are doing. The point really here is that if there is hate speech, if there is an objection, and many people have made memes on both sides of the ideological divide. My question is, now even to question the FIR, even to begin with that premise that everything has to be looked at with lots of suspicion, is that the right direction to solve the problem which we are trying to do at the moment?
Namaskar Navika ji, good evening to you, to all my fellow panelists and to all your viewers. This is one of those rare occasions where, with respect, I disagree with Sushant Sareen ji. And I agree with you, Navika ma'am, that who is fringe and who is mainstream. I mean, people either who are coming to your show or otherwise are national spokespersons of the party sent and authorized by the party, within the party send them. So that can't be, that's not an accusation that should fall on you as the messenger. You were only carrying the message. They had to stay within the democratic limits and within the party limits. But I have a larger question on what is fringe and what is mainstream. Because fringe is the lady from Bhopal against whom I had filed the complaint, who the Honorable Prime Minister told you personally, ma'am, that she has broken, she's hurt him, and he will never forgive her. Today, a member of parliament she was fringe at one time. Today, she's a member of parliament after the Prime Minister promised you, ma'am. Who is fringe, ma'am? Adityanath ji was on a stage when vulgar words were spoken about dead women as member of parliament. Today, he's Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. I don't even want to repeat those words. Is he fringe? And it has happened on the other side of the divide. OAC brothers, look at the language they use and continue to use. There's a video now going viral of the OAC brother, a proclaimed offender who's continuing to use abusive language against Hindu gods and goddesses. Is he fringe? He's a member of the Legislative Assembly in Telangana. The point is, ma'am, all of us as a nation need to stop. Take a pause, take one step behind and realize that the destruction we are causing to our country is irreversible. We will all not be there in the next 40, 50, 60, 70 years, but India will remain forever. We cannot destroy the legacy of India. India is not a 70-year-old nation. It's a civilization that is hundreds and hundreds of years old. Why and how are we destroying it? And I support what is happening. Action should be taken on every side of the divide, whichever side of the divide decides to spread hate or hurt a community. But I have a question. When the Honorable Supreme Court gave guidelines, in my particular case, on how hate speech must be tackled both online and offline, why did the Honorable Prime Minister and Home Minister not pass that law in Parliament, despite me going personally to the Home Secretary? Even now I've asked them for an appointment. I have personally filed cases against those on this side of the divide. My side of the divide was spreading hate against Hindu gods, goddesses. Why those FIRs not being filed? Why those complaints not being translated into FIRs? And that gives a feeling to either side that there is a bias. We need to work as per the law of the land, as per our constitution, which is our only holy book and our holiest book for that matter.
Well, it's not only about holy books, is it? Because somebody, I remember in the last elections, even called Chaukidar Chor hai. Now, is that hate speech or not? Suhail Seth, that's the question many people are asking.
Chaukidar Chor cannot be compared to what?
Yeah, sure. Fair point. Yes, but I'm just saying
it's a jumla. It is, you can, yeah, but it's not a hate. Yeah.
Okay, all right. It's a jumla, you believe. Ab aapke muh se nikal gaya. So the jumlas come from both sides of the divide. But Suhail Seth,
I mean, it's
Suhail Seth, my question to you is, crossing of the line is something that's happening all the time. And when that happens, why is there outrage selective? Outrage that happens. I want to play out the visuals because I'm not going to put up the volume. I don't want to have hate speeches blaring all the time. But these are visuals of what was done in Jammu Masjid today. And all kinds of calls of, chopping off necks and taking away hands and names of people and all kinds of threats today. But then Majid Hydari and people like him will come out and say, कि भाई, ये तो Muslims के against है. I want to ask you, why does it become about a religious community? Hate is hate, whoever does it. Why do we make it about that it's against this religion or that religion? This community or that community?
Religion is a great identity definer. It defines for a lot of people, it defines who they are. But religion is a private matter. The day you put religion out in the public domain, you create the issues that have been created in this country. Tehseen talked about something, but I want to extend that argument. India is a civilizational legacy. I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a Hindu, but do I wear it on my sleeve? No. Why? Because I don't need to. Do I need to tell people who I worship? I don't need to. That's between my maker and me, as it should be for every citizen of this country. The problem is that politicians got away by using religion as an electoral tool or as an electoral lollipop. That has now degenerated into the debasement of the worst kind. And what has happened is the anonymity on social media, the mechanisms which Sushant referred to of mainstream media actually profiling and platforming a lot of these jokers has given them more courage to say who can be a bigger abuser. Majid, we've never met except for now. I can only tell you this, my friend. There is no victim. There are people who commit crimes and then there are people who don't commit crimes. For me, an Owaisi is not a politician if he has made, if what he said is criminally non-tenable, then it is a crime that needs to be booked under the laws that exist in our country. But what was the problem? The problem is we either chose the laws and prosecuted those who we wanted to prosecute, and people who were being prosecuted then converted it into a religious bias. So both sides were wrong. It is convenient for people to hide under the garb of, to hide under religion because it's the convenient whipping horse. So my point is as follows. A, action against hate must be taken universally without fear, favor, or any kind of polarization. I don't care whether the person is Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh. If he has committed a hate crime, he needs to be booked, he or she. Number two, we cannot as an entire nation be shamed because of some stupid comments made by stupid people for no rhyme or reason. So if there is no general universal condemnation, we are in trouble. And what is happening today is even condemnation is being polarized. So today you're saying, oh, you are condemning me because I'm Muslim, or you're condemning me because I'm Hindu. I mean, what kind of a country do we want? Is this the divisiveness that we seek? Is this the India that the Gandhis and the Nehrus and even today Modi wants? Do we want a country that is shamed internationally for no rhyme or reason? I mean, I cannot even understand. Even the word fringe elements is incorrect English, but that is pardonable because, you know, the BJP has written that press statement. What do you mean by fringe element? The definition of fringe is a strand of hair which falls off from your head. So you're still rooted to the head, for God's sake. And I do not believe, Navika, and there I tend to slightly deviate from what Tehseen said, it is all political parties have become this way. All of them. They have become irresponsible. They have allowed debasement to enter. Our modicum, our decorum in debates has fallen to a low that we have never seen. Humor has gone out of our lives. We are an angry country. If someone were to ever come in as a tourist and put on television in the evening, that guy will think, man, this country is at war every minute. He doesn't know that Tehseen and I will, you know, after the studio, go and chat as good friends over a glass of sugarcane juice, which at my age is the only thing I can have. But we've stopped humor. There's no humor. It's the George Bush syndrome. Either you're with me or against me. Then people are calling people, and then media unfairly at times and fairly at times is being accused, oh, you call these people so that aapke TRPs bade. Navika, I've known you. You will not, at any cost or for any TRP, sacrifice either the unity of our country or foster, encourage, and promote any level of polarization. But this is who we are becoming. So I'm saying bring nice people on the program. Bring people who are literate, who can quote, who can end the program with Shakespeare or with Dinkar or with Tagore. Everyone is ending with, I'll kill you tomorrow, I'll kill you day after. What kind of a nation do we want here? Everything is going well for us. We have the world's youngest democracy. We have the world's finest entrepreneurs. We have a civilizational legacy made by all communities put together. Do we want to fritter that away at the altar of rage, at the altar of polarity, at the altar of hate? Not at all. Love, and Majid, stop putting your finger up. That's the other problem in India. When people are speaking, everyone wants to interrupt. You'll get your turn, my friend. So, point is, have people like Sanjay Jha, Sushant Sareen, Tehseen Poonawala, Karan, even Majid. Have people who are happy. You know, Cassius in Julius Caesar, brilliantly Julius Caesar says, and this was no reference to my weight, he says, let me have men about me who are fat, for Cassius has a lean and hungry look. Such men are dangerous. Let's not have a lean and hungry look filled with rage. Smile a little, love a lot, be happy. I know you disagree, my good friend, but you know, everyone is entitled. And let's agree to disagree without being disagreeable. The point is our disagreements have become disagreeable. I mean, for God's sake, we are in a great nation. You know, Majid started the debate by saying, if you look at the figures, if you look at the economy, why do we want to fritter that away? I've never understood. Perhaps Sushant can tell us because he's such a learned gentleman with the Observer Research Foundation.
Well, Suhail, you know, You seem to be somebody who's really working on his HQ, which is the happiness quotient.
I've always had a happiness quotient. अब ये भी इसमें भी नजर लगा दो. Come on. अब इसमें भी नजर लगा दो.
Nazar is all, all myth. We are all in a happy space. Nazar कैसे लगेगी? मैं तो benign and I'm very nice and a happy person. I'm not polarizing at all, not hateful at all. Why will I लगाओ nazar? This is where your hate is also now transparently there after all the motivational speech that you've done. But Sanjay Jha, the political tool, easy politics happens through the religious prism, and that's why. And Indians by and large are, religion is a part of their life unless, somebody is moved up the economic ladder as much as Suhail has. Religion, thoda sa puja part, it's an important part, integral part of people's daily lives. Have politicians exploited that amongst the people, citizens of India, and used it as a toolkit for their own vote banks? And is everybody across the spectrum guilty of doing that?
Well, Navika, the short answer to your question is that the entire political ecosystem has to put up its hands and say that we have failed the citizens of our country, of a great country. I need to add here that everything that Suhail said, I think not just me, but practically everyone watching your program will agree with it because it's dispassionate. And I think at the end of the day, what is missing in politics in India at the moment is that we are all beginning to become so parochial and petty that no one is really thinking of how can we make a difference to make our lives better. There is one data point, Navika, which will tell you what India should be actually debating, but is being forced to discuss other narratives. In the Environmental Performance Index, we have been ranked at number 80 at the lowest in the world at a time when climate change threatens civilization. When you have probably Glasgow and you have many more climate change summits, future generations. India is such a young country, Navika. Every year we debate about how polluted our societies are, but politicians are not going to discuss that. You see, this is the fundamental challenge. Politicians, and I've been one, and I need to say this regretfully, but with complete transparency, that we only worry about an election and re-election. No one cares a damn for the future generations. And therefore, politics needs, I want India to have a green party. One of the things that I pushed and trying to push within the Congress is make climate change your biggest USP for 2024. Talk to the young, change the whole narrative. India, you're absolutely right, Navika. We are a religious country. We have a very checkered history. And these are certain realities that we'll have to manage, cope, and hopefully we will improve on that. But for any political entity to try and make that their very foundational principle for winning elections, I think we all need to come together and say, sorry, that's not going to happen. And I do feel that when you have a country, Navika, where 22% of people are living below the poverty line, and that 22%, by the way, is 300 million. It's almost equivalent to the population of America, or 6 or 7 times the population of Australia. So we got an astronomical problem there. You got farmers who need to be taken care of. We keep talking about education and health. I mean, there are fundamental challenges that we need to debate. I'll give you one example, Navika. A Hollywood actor went to Washington to the White House yesterday, Matthew McConaughey, and spoke on gun control. I want, whether it's films, whether it's an intellectual, whether it's a Suhail said, whether it's a political analyst or a political creature, actually. I would love politicians from BJP and Congress to discuss issues that affect the common man on a day-to-day basis. I think, let me tell you that your channel is an extremely popular one. And, even, I believe me, you'll be surprised, but you don't know how much I have fought with my own party until I was suspended to say that you should always go and be on every TV channel. The mainstream media is so crucial for you to get your message out. They don't get it. Well, that's their problem. But I do want to tell you that your channel is popular. Forget the controversies that have happened. And I'm telling you that I'm loving the debate today. where right from Tehseen to Sushant to Majid to Suhail, I think we have all said what we genuinely feel. And trust me, your viewers are going to love it. Because end of the day, nobody likes to go to sleep feeling polarized and disturbed.
I hope they do love it, but I'll send you the TRP numbers next week of the debate today. But is that going to change anything? We might all agree, and deep down we are all rational human beings, as Suhail said, who after an argument, after a debate, will go out, sit together, have a glass of sugarcane juice and have a reasonable conversation. But Karan Verma, will this change? Will parties pick up? Will people pick up these issues? No, because even as we are speaking this, even as these FIRs have been filed, the fact is every single political party is sitting in a resort where they're sitting, keeping their MLAs together, because there is a Rajya Sabha election tomorrow morning. Who's going to defect where? Who's going to be brought this side? What kind of trading? What are the rates of trading? And that's when the real business will begin. And, you know, that business has been on for the last, 10 days. I want to ask you, we might speak all of this, and today we might all actually come to a unanimity on this issue. But will anything change in the long run? Will we?
Well, it can only change when we end the hypocrisy, as the title of your show is, Navika. This debate has been a whiff of fresh air, and we so wish that this happens in our politics and in our public discourse largely. Today is a day, Navika, which should be welcomed by one and all. We've seen the Delhi police file FIRs across ideological divide, across the political spectrum, and hate has no place in a civilized country like ours. Suhail is right. India's brand equity doesn't need hate. We want to be a happy country that is making giant strides. So is Sanjay Jha right. Because today there is no place for all of this. We have demographic dividend and we should max it as much as we can. But the politics of hatred, when a Congress party aligns with ISF in Bengal, when a Congress party aligns with an AIUDF in Assam, that is where the problem is. When Mr. Owaisi makes a comment that this is a balancing act, and the truth is that the only balancing act that has happened has been the bogey of Hindu terror, which was coined by Digvijay Singh. That is where the problem is. Only when we come together and criticize a crime for a crime, hatred for hatred, then only we can make giant strides. Otherwise, such debates will come and grow. We'll feel good, but it will not last for much. For this to India for too long, our politics, our people need to come together and call a spade a spade.
Well, Tehseen Poonawalla, respond to that. You know, it has to begin somewhere. It can't be that Rajasthan will carry on in some other universe where perpetrators of the Ram Navami violence will not be brought to the book, where, and if Yogi tries to do that, then people like Majid Hydari will argue कि भाई मुसलमानों को पकड़ रहे हो. I just want to ask you, is there a shade of crime? Is there a shade of terror? Is there a community, a religion that it is associated with? But it's something that was created. Hindu terror, this terror, that terror. You know, are we in a mindset where on a permanent basis we will be able to change this? Are we?
Navika, to quote Shakespeare in simple English, we know what we are, but know not what we may be. And for India to reach the goal of a $5 trillion or $20 trillion economy, to elevate poverty and the suffering of our fellow citizens, to give equal opportunities to every single citizen of ours and their children, the idea must be that we must stick to our core values for which we got independence, for which our founding fathers fought. And those core values today, I see from all sides, are being eroded. And the fact of the matter is, Suhail is right, Sanjay is right. There is mainstreaming of hate that has happened. So therefore I'm saying, and I repeat myself, that we all need to pause. We need to stop the finger pointing and say, Where do we go from here? What is the direction that we take from here? Do we sit back, look back at the dark ages over the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years, the polarization, or say the next 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years will be a land of opportunity where we will end the suffering that today our people are suffering, that Sanjay spoke about. So that is a call all of us must take as a nation. And all of us must, there must be critique of every single action. However, that critique must be within the acceptable boundaries. And that boundaries need to be drawn out by us. Us people who sit in these television studios are privileged to sit and follow the line. We have a great nation that allows us to criticize night after night the highest authority. And night after night I criticize the Prime Minister fearlessly. But that must be within limits, within decent language, and whether we critique anybody or any organization, it must be within the constitutional boundaries. That's what I feel is the way ahead for our country.
So do you agree today that the Prime Minister is not a dictator, he's not Hitler? Because many in your party don't believe that. Yes or no?
If you were to ask me honestly, if you were to ask me very honestly, and I cannot lie to you, I do believe that the Honorable Prime Minister also made certain statements as Prime Minister which he shouldn't have. For example, Dangayo ko kapro se pehchana jata hai. But I don't want to get into that. It was a complaint I had filed against him at the Election Commission. I think we should all now, at least political leaders, act like statesmen, whether it's Shri Rahul Gandhi, whether it's Shri Narendra Modi, and take this nation forward. I think a great idea is if Shri Rahul Gandhi, Shri Narendra Modi, Arvind Kejriwal ji, Mamta ji can sit and have a civilized conversation, laughing, smiling, maybe over sugarcane juice, and show the country that together we are one, and we will. We may have different approaches, but the end goal is to take India to a $5 trillion, $10 trillion equitable economy. I think we should strive at doing that.
After our parents have chastised us many times, when we were young kids, we behaved like this. For 2 days, 3 days, it lasts. Does it last forever? And do you think people who came out and said the RSS is almost like ISIS and Boko Haram, and somebody who said Jai Shri Ram is a war cry, or Jai Shri Ram is almost, people who say Jai Shri Ram are like the devil's Rakshas hote hain. Sushant Sareen, will this change in the long run?
Navika, first, just one point of disagreement with Suhail and all the others who are swearing by sugarcane juice. I don't think drinking sugarcane juice after this debate makes for a happy nation. I can think of better things to drink. But having said that, look, number one, this should not be a problem in having very spirited and strong debates and differences. We are a society where we agree to disagree with each other, and I agree with Suhail when he says without being disagreeable, which is what Tehseen said, that look, you can say really strong things against people, but within certain boundaries of decency. You can't be giving Mabhengi gali publicly. If you're sitting with your friends, you're using some language, it's one thing, but publicly to be threatening death, to be threatening beheading. I saw a vile video the other day by somebody in some part of Delhi who's saying the vilest of things against Nupur Sharma. Is this the level of debate? And people are showing it publicly. So I think one is that part of it. The other part of it is, look, politicians will go after each other. There have to be certain boundaries, there have to be certain frontiers, they should not, red lines, they should not cross. But to say that, look, after today, everybody will be, meeting each other, like somebody once said, with this happiness on their face, hugging each other, the climate would have changed. I don't even want that to happen, because India will become a terribly boring country after that. So we must have our debates. We must have debates on issues. Unfortunately, we have debates on non-issues. Yes, let's have a debate on climate change, and I have a serious problem with that climate change report which has come out. Sanjay Jha might subscribe to it. I don't, because I think there's a political angle.
Gyan is an issue for some people. Are you saying we should brush it under the carpet?
But Navika, if Gyan Vyapi is an issue, and it is an issue, it's a historical legacy, it is an issue. But are we going to chop off each other's heads while trying to solve that issue? Or are we going to argue it out? Are we going to debate about it? We have very spirited debates about it. We take legal recourse, we press our legal claims, we press historical claims, and we try and sort it out. We use politics for it.
Are we going to do that, or are we going to go on the streets, riot, massacre each other, chop off each other's head, make the most blood-curdling calls for violence? Are we going to do that?
Very well said. No space for that. And Majid Hydri has been raising his hand. I have to bring him in. Majid Hydri, reasonable point. We have our differences, but should we draw a line somewhere?
Well, yes, Navika Sahib, firstly, it's an honor to share dice with people of varied thought, especially Suhail Sahab. But let's agree to disagree, sir. You said that we should quote Shakespeare. We don't live in Shakespearean era, sir. What's in a name is not the truth about our country. It's all about names, sir. Khan and Khanna are poles apart when it comes to police probing the separate ruled states. And that is what the discussion is all about. We say end this discrimination because law says everybody is equal in the eyes of law, but that doesn't happen in reality. That is the problem. The problem is that one community gets marginalized, demonized for no fault of theirs. So let's stop the buck somewhere, sir, and let's accept that there has been something wrong in our country for the last few years, which needs to be corrected through course correction. If we are a progressive nation, we need to be united. Our unity in diversity has been our hallmark, and it comes from mutual respect, sir. Unless we revive that, and unless that comes from the majority community government, which wears the religion on its sleeves. Why do we have a chief minister doing puja, which becomes a national issue? Why should any chief minister or prime minister's puja or his religious belief become a national issue or a national concern? It's his private issue, sir, as you rightly said. Religion is my private affair. But when the governments politicize it and make it an official affair,
Fair point. I'm running out of time. I have to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, but Suhail Seth, respond to that. Running out of time. Last comment by Suhail Seth.
You know, there is no disagreement that the law is blind to religion, caste, creed, and color. It is no one's case on this panel that the law should be selective, and I said that in my opening remarks. But the law cannot be not implemented because I belong to either a majority community or a minority community or a sideline community. That is irrelevant and illogical. Number two, I will end with a solution, Navika. Politicians only love one thing, it's power. If you combine the election or give the election commission more power and more teeth than they already have, if they have any at all, the only way you will stop this is if a politician indulges in hate speech, he is debarred from standing for political office forever. You do that to one person, all these jokers will stand in line. As for the common citizen, there's no question if you can create special courts for PMLA and for POSCO, have a special tribunal or a court or a judicial track for hate crime. Because to my mind, hate is worse than anything else. It will divide India rather than unite. It will destroy India rather than make it progressive. And it is not who we are. So I do not want to stand shamed in the international community because of something I'm not. If my government can't clarify it, someone else need to. So you and your media colleagues and your media channels need to tell the world that India is not about hate. India is about love. India is not about polarity. It's about plurality. And India is about affection and not about being aghast with each other. That's the India we belong to, and that's the India that will remain.
That's right. I completely agree with you, and I just want to end with one point. Our Upanishads have said this, Satyam vad dharm char, which means speak the truth, walk on the path of dharma. And dharma not always means your religion. Dharma also means doing the right thing. And our dharma teaches us. That is what Indianness is all about. It is about the idea of India, and it is about staying on the course of dharma. And that dharma is that argue, debate, but draw the line. Because hurting each other is not the solution to the problem. There is a constitution, there are courts which will resolve issues which can't be resolved between people. But when we are arguing, we need to respect each other and each other's rights. Because without a Lakshman Rekha, call it by whatever else definition in whatever religion, but without a Lakshman Rekha, we will be all over the place, and we will be speaking sentences like Sar tan se juda or this one is bad and that one is bad. We need to be on the same page because we are Indians. It's as simple as that. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on debate number 1. On the other side, it's a show of strength, not just an inquiry or an investigation. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 1st of June, Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi received their summons from the Enforcement Directorate in the Associated Journal Young Indian case, the National Herald case as it is being called. While Sonia Gandhi is down with COVID and has sought time, Rahul Gandhi is expected to face the agency 4 days from now. While Rahul may be preparing to answer all the questions relating to the allegations of amassing disproportionate income and all the related question in the income tax returns that he's filed as directors of Young Indian, his loyal party members are readying to hit the streets in protest. Come Monday, we're going to see a pan-India protest by not just the Congress supporters, but even members of parliament who have been summoned to Delhi to give moral support to the Gandhi sign. The grand old party wants to make a spectacle of Rahul Gandhi cooperating with the agencies. That is, if he actually does turn up at the Enforcement Directorate office. And what's wrong in supporting your leader, they say? Listen in.
It's completely wrongly taken. There are a set of MPs who had wrote to the Congress leaders that we should why we should not be standing against this injustice with Mr. Rahul Gandhi. He is our leader and he is our colleague in the Lok Sabha, and therefore Lok Sabha MPs from Congress party, as I know that those people who are young MPs who had wrote to Congress leadership, therefore only this decision that all the MPs wants to come to Delhi and they wanted to be part of it. Today there is a meeting at 4 o'clock with the General Secretaries and the Presidents. We will take a call on that request from the MPs.
The witch hunting, they're trying to disturb our national leaders, especially Sri Rahul Gandhi ji. 13th ED has filed a case, he has to appear in the court in Delhi. In Karnataka, KPCC will take a protest.
Now contrast this attempt by the Congress party to when Narendra Modi appeared before the investigation agency 12 years ago. The then Gujarat Chief Minister appeared before the SIT that was probing the 2002 riots in Gujarat. The head of the probe team recalled the marathon questioning of the now Prime Minister and how he remained calm through it all. That's what cooperation looked like, says the BJP, who is now accusing the Congress of running away from the law. So the legitimate question we're asking on the news now, is Congress backing Parivar and not propriety or the law? That's the question and the debate on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 2 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
GVL Narasimha Rao, Member of Parliament and National Spokesperson of the BJP, joins Tehseen Poonawalla on this debate. And GVL Narasimha Rao, 12 years ago, and you know how long these investigations went on from 2002 right up to 2014 and beyond. I want to ask you, the Congress party today held a virtual meeting to figure this out on how they should support their leader. Are you planning to arrest him? Because I thought it was just a questioning. So if it's questioning and some questions need to be answered, do you think, we saw this visuals on the screen which show when they, both Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi went to Patiala House courts. I was covering that and we were there. It was a traffic jam and the common man was upset with the kind of jams it caused. But other than that, was it a political statement that needed to be made?
Navika, I think the Gandhi family has this habit of claiming to be a family, claiming to be leaders with certain privileges which are not available to other politicians or other leaders. Only a week before summons were issued to Rahul Gandhi and Sonia ji, Mallikarjun Kharge, who is the leader of the Congress party in Rajya Sabha, he was also questioned by the Enforcement Directorate. And I have not seen even a statement being put out by the Congress party when Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge went and he was examined. But when the Gandhis are called, I think they have a special airs. I think how dare you call them? This is pressure tactics. I think Enforcement Directorate, when they have called them to be examined or questioned, you ask all your MPs, you rally them, and what are you trying to do? Are you trying to indulge in pressure tactic? Is this what a responsible political leader or a party should do? Like you mentioned, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, when he was Chief Minister, he was examined, he was questioned with a volley of 100 questions over 10 hours. And this was stated by Mr. R.K. Raghavan, who was the Supreme Court appointed special investigation team head. He himself wrote in his autobiography, he was fully cooperative, answered all the questions, and never lost his cool, did not even ask for tea, he did not take it even if it was offered to him. So he said, okay, I will abide by the rules of the game.
Absolutely.
So if I'm being asked and questioned, I will answer them like anybody else.
Tehseen Poonawalla, is there a special dispensation? Congress leaders don't get it. Common people don't get it. Whoever summoned goes, gives their statement, and you know, if the investigators are satisfied, they come out, or otherwise whatever the investigation needs to do, it does. The question here is that when they had to go to Patiala House courts, there was this big jamboree. Now, Enforcement Directorate, it's a show of strength. I just want to ask you one question. Is this a way to try and show that you're not ordinary and you have this kind of support, that you will take your MPs along, and therefore the law is different for different people? Is that the message? Because as GVL says, even the Chief Minister of Gujarat, then Mr. Narendra Modi, went alone and went and answered the question. What's the big deal?
The Honourable Member of Parliament, Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, spoke rightly about the Supreme Court. Yes, I know. The Honourable Member of Parliament, GVL Narasimha Rao, spoke rightly about the SIT with regards to then Chief Minister Modi, appointed by the Honourable Supreme Court. And the same Honourable Supreme Court said in a written judgment that the current ED director who summoned Shri Gandhi and Srimati Sonia Gandhi ji, his tenure will not be extended, and this government backhand in Rajya Sabha, after suspending 12 MPs, overturned a judgment of the Supreme Court and extended their favourite director's tenure. If this is not shameful, what is? Now let me appoint number 2 to the Honourable MP. Sharad Pawar ji, when you knew you all were losing the Maharashtra elections, on the eve of the elections, you all summoned Sharad Pawar ji by the ED, same director whose tenure you all have extended. And the Mumbai police and the Fadnavis ji went to Sharad Pawar ji and said, please don't go to the ED office, there will be a problem, because mass leader, there is a liking, there's lots of people who want to go with them, who want to stand with them in times of tyranny which you all are indulging in. My simple question to the Honourable Member of Parliament is this. Today on this show, expose me. Tell me what law will Sri Rahul Gandhi break if the MPs are going? And if he's breaking a law, why are you not acting? You are supposed to maintain law and order. What law is he breaking? If he's not breaking a law, what are you complaining about? You are complaining about a hypothetical him not having tea or coke
before GVL answers
coffee?
that question, I only want to ask you one more question. And that question is the decision going to be taken only by the Enforcement Directorate, or is it going to be taken by the courts in this country? And what have the courts said so far about National Herald, Young Indians, and AJL? You've seen those judgments. So I just want to ask you, why do you not have faith in the courts?
Question.
If there are the courts, they will adjudicate. आपको डर किस बात का है भाई?
किसी बात का डर नहीं है. There is absolutely no fear. The point is that the process is the punishment. Ultimately, there's not going to be a conviction here.
The process is the punishment.
Observation.
No, you've said it all. You've said it all. The process is the punishment. The process is the punishment. So when common people are asked questions, then the common people are summoned. When the common people are put behind bars, then the process cannot be questioned. But If it is the Gandhis, the process is the punishment. GVL Narasimha Rao, respond.
Yeah, Navika is why was Mallikarjun Kharge a leader, a very tall Dalit leader, and who's been appointed as a leader of the opposition in Rajya Sabha? Why was he not extended the same courtesy that Gandhis are being extended, if you call that a courtesy? So everybody else is dispensable, everybody else should follow the rule of the law, but Gandhis will not follow the rule of the law. Or they will want to use political might to browbeat or to pressurize whoever is investigating cases involving them. So I think this is where the hypocrisy of the Gandhi family is.
Will the ED
the
get
Gandhis
pressurized?
And
answer the question Tehseen asked.
Everybody else.
Answer the question Tehseen asked. Is there a law preventing members of parliament to go with Rahul Gandhi? Answer that question. 10 seconds.
And did Pawar Sahab browbeat you?
No, sir. You see, No, certainly inside the questioning, nobody will be allowed. I think they will have to go and stand on the street or sit on the streets of Delhi. They will not be certainly allowed to be examined in the presence of their MPs. Certainly the procedure will be followed by the ED. But the question is, why does Rahul Gandhi need to use this as a cover? Is he using MPs as some kind of a protective shield?
The question, ladies and gentlemen, that I want to leave with the viewers tonight is just this. The law is equal for everybody. But are some people more equal than everyone else? That's the question that is being raised. Thank you very much for joining me on the Newshour tonight. Good night. Be safe. I'll see you tomorrow.
You were watching the Newshour at 9. Stay tuned. Times now. Action begins here. at 9. You were watching the Newshour at 9. Stay tuned. Times now. Action begins here.
For the last 2 years, the world has been relentlessly fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. As the countries across the globe prioritize vaccinations to keep the next wave of COVID at bay, India also rolled out precautionary jabs this year to achieve herd immunity against the virus. While COVID has not risen substantially in India in the last few months, the pandemic has not yet faded. India has remained on guard, but vaccination among children remains low and is significantly less talked about.
Immunizing the kids will not only check the spread of the asymptomatic infections, who can act as silent hosts for the virus, and which will lead to again spread in the society, but again it can also mitigate the severity, the intensity of the infection in children.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Padmaja Joshi and you're watching the Newshour Agenda. Before I get to the big story of the day, I want to take a quick minute of yours to say thank you again. Agenda remains the most loved primetime show at 10, and that's because you have chosen us and shown faith in us week after week. Now let's come to the main issue. We've been having this discussion for quite a while now. The question about who really is responsible for spreading hate in the country and what is this hate mongering that we are speaking about now. Yesterday, the Delhi police registered a case under various provisions against those who are spreading messages of hate, inciting various groups and creating situations detrimental to maintenance of public tranquility. This action was taken suo motu. What's important is that this action was taken across the board against people irrespective of their political affiliation and religion. Naveen Jindal, Shadab Chauhan, Saba Naqvi, Maulana Mufti Nadeem, Abdul Rahman, Gulzar Ansari, Anil Kumar Meena, Pooja Shakun Chaudhary, these are just some of the names of the total 31 who stand booked now. It's good. It's a good thing. Let people face prosecution if indeed they have acted contrary to the law. But here's the thing. Despite the fact that there are people of all religions who have been booked for this hate mongering, the focus still remains somehow on Islamophobia. The chorus remains only for the arrest of Nupur Sharma. The outrage is directed only on one section, almost as if the hate speech by the other lot is inconsequential, as if it doesn't even exist, or that it should be given a clean chit. Why? How is it that the narrative remains one-sided even when it's clear that the hate speech, though condemnable, is pretty religion neutral? In fact, today, Mamata Banerjee went so far as to say that BJP leaders should be arrested for their heinous hate speech, and brothers and sisters from the other castes, religions and communities should maintain peace despite provocation. It's almost as if she didn't see the Maulana Qudduses of the world who have declared that they will come on the streets ready to die, or the chairman of the Shahi Jama Masjid in Agra who threatened to cut people into pieces if they so much as dared to conduct the survey of a mosque, or Maulana Mufti Nadeem in Rajasthan who threatened to lop off people's hands, cut their tongues and gouge out their eyes, or this latest gentleman from Jammu, a man who gets on top of a mosque and asks for Nupur Sharma and a local journalist to be beheaded, to be cut into pieces, as an entire crowd cheers him on.
मेरे भाइयों, लेकिन सरू को कलम करना भी सिखाते हैं। तो इसलिए बातों को ज़हन में बिठा दो। हम खामोश तब तक है जब और दर कहीं मिलेंगे। और मैं नबी का कलमे पढ़ने वाला मुसलमान खुद मैदान में आए और ये भगवे भी हमारे दुश्मन, आरएसएस भी हमारी दुश्मन है। तो इसलिए मैं अंजुमन इस्लामिया की तरफ से तमाम अवाम का शुक्रिया करता हूँ। मैंने जैसे पहले ही अर्ज किया कि ये अमन को खराब करने वाले अनासिर हैं, कभी अजान पे कभी पर्दे पे। तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को चाहिए जो अजान के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े, अगर जो पर्दे के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े। ये गला नहीं पकड़ सकते तो हम गला काटने के लिए तैयार हैं, हम गला काटने के लिए तैयार हैं। और इनको मैं बताना चाहता हूं, सबसे ज्यादा कम दर्जे का मुसलमान इतना ईमान रखता है दुनिया के किसी भी ब्रिगेडियर, किसी भी ताकत गुस्ताख नबी का सर कलम कर सकते।
Which brings us to the final question. Where is this entire one-sided outrage coming from? Or are we supposed to look at hate speech with a one-eyed secularism? If the offense is even-handed, when people from all religions are being booked, then why brand it as Islamophobia?
You're watching the News Hour at 10. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Professor Sangeet Ragi, political analyst, joins us along with political analyst Zubair Memon and Vivek Srivastav. Zubair Memon, I want to start by asking you, why are we still only talking about Islamophobia when it's quite clear from the FIR, from the video that you just saw, that hate speech, though condemnable, comes from all religions. It is religion neutral. It is not about Islamophobia alone. Zubair Memon.
जी मैम, जो आपने वीडियो वगैरह दिखाया बिल्कुल ही गलत है वीडियो। और मैं समझता हूं कि जो आपके आज एफआईआर का मुद्दा है, जो एफआईआर में नाम लिए गए कुछ 30 लोग, जिसमें असदुद्दीन ओवैसी, सबा नकवी जैसे सीनियर जर्नलिस्ट भी है, उनकी कहीं भी हमको हेट स्पीच या ट्वीट्स या कोई भी सोशल मीडिया या मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे कोई वीडियो क्लिप्स या कोई भी तरीके का कोई फोटो एविडेंस अभी तक तो मिला नहीं है। और कहीं भी एफआईआर में ये सीनियर लीडर्स जो है, जो रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं कम्युनिटी को, उनका कहीं भी हमको कोई एविडेंस पुलिस की तरफ से भी एफआईआर में दिया नहीं गया।
सेकंड पॉइंट, एक सेकंड, आप कह रहे हैं कि ये रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं कम्युनिटी को, क्योंकि आजकल ये भी बड़ी डिबेट है कि कम्युनिटी को कौन रिप्रेजेंट करता है। तो आप मान रहे हैं कि सबा नकवी कम्युनिटी को रिप्रेजेंट करती हैं। लेट्स गेट दैट क्लियर।
सबा नकवी मीडिया को रिप्रेजेंट करती है मैडम, जो मुस्लिम लीडर्स है, सीनियर मुस्लिम लीडर्स, उनकी बात कर रहा हूं। एंड सेकंड थिंग जो आपने मेन पॉइंट उठाई कि इस्लामोफोबिक क्यों इसको कहा जा रहा है इस पुलिस की कार्रवाई को, तो जहां तक मैं समझता हूं कि ये दिल्ली स्पेशल सेल की तरफ से की गई कार्रवाई है। हमको कुछ सालों पहले की एक चीज याद रखनी होगी कि, एक मिनट, लेट मी बी करेक्ट ऑन द फैक्ट्स। मनीषा शेट्टी एंड जामिया स्कूल टीचर्स एसोसिएशन ने मिलकर 2012 के अंदाजन एक बुक निकाली थी, जिसमें 28 केसेस मेंशन थे विद प्रूफ एंड एविडेंस, जिसके अंदर सैकड़ों इनोसेंट मुस्लिम, बेगुनाह मुस्लिम बच्चों की 10 साल, 12 साल, 14 साल फर्जी केसेस के अंदर जेलों के अंदर जिंदगी तबाह कर दी गई। उस बुक का नाम था दिल्ली स्पेशल सेल का खोखला सच। तो इस तरह की जो घटनाएं होती है, जो बुक्स अवेलेबल है, विद फैक्ट्स अवेलेबल है, अगर सैकड़ों मुसलमानों को सिर्फ इसके लिए जेलों में ठूस दिया जाए, मैं बता रहा हूँ,
उसका इससे क्या लेना देना?
आ रहा हूँ मैडम, उसी पे आ रहा हूँ। जब सैकड़ों मुसलमानों को जेलों में ठूस दिया जाता है,
सैकड़ों हिंदुओं को भी कई बार गलत केसेस में अंदर जाना पड़ता है, बाद में वो बरी हो जाते हैं। बट इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि सारे केसेस हिंदुओं के खिलाफ गलत ही हो रहे हैं।
जोशी मैम, मैं एविडेंस पे बात कर रहा हूँ, आप रेटोरिक्स पे बोल रहे हैं।
अरे मैं रेटोरिक्स पे नहीं बात कर रही, मैं आप ही का एविडेंस लेकर के उसको पलट रही हूँ। इस केस से क्या लेना देना है जुबैर साहब?
आप मुझको, मैं उसी पे आ रहा हूँ मैम, आप मुझे काट दी बीच में, मैं उसी पे आ रहा हूँ, आपने बात कट कर दी है। कि जब इस तरीके की बुकें छपती है विद एविडेंस, जब हमारे सामने फैक्ट्स आते हैं, तो हम ये क्यों ना सोचने पे मजबूर हो कि जिसका बेस पॉइंट नूपुर शर्मा और नवीन जिंदल थे, जिसके ऊपर 10 दिनों तक करोड़ों हिंदुस्तान के मुसलमान अपने प्रधानमंत्री से गुहार लगाते रहे कि आप प्रधानमंत्री बात सुनिए, हमारी आस्था को ठेस पहुंचाइए, जिसको हमारे प्रधानमंत्री डेफ ईयर पे डाल दिया, जिसको हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने डेफ ईयर पे डाल दिया।
एक सेकंड,
वही बता रहा हूँ, जिसको हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने डेफ ईयर पे डाले और एक किसी अनजान छोटे से देश की धमकी बोलो या
किधर को चले जा रहे हो? मैं आपसे सिंपली पूछ रही हूँ, ये केस का करना इस्लामोफोबिया कैसे हो सकता है? लेट मी कोट टू यू।
अगर नवीन जिंदल
FIR हुआ है
जैसे फ्रिंज एलिमेंट्स,
तो
अगर नवीन जिंदल
जितने नवीन जिंदल फ्रिंज हैं उसके हिसाब से उतने ही उतनी ही सबा नकवी भी फ्रिंज है, और इस केस के हिसाब से उतने ही असदुद्दीन ओवैसी भी फ्रिंज है।
मुझे तो केस में कहीं फ्रिंज एलिमेंट दिखा नहीं मैम, मुझे
आपको नहीं दिखा ना सर, आपको दिखा नहीं होगा क्योंकि सबा नकवी ने शिवलिंग के ऊपर एक ट्वीट की थी जहां पे उन्होंने कहा था कि भाई ये भाभा एटॉमिक रिसर्च सेंटर में जो न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर है अब इसमें भी एक्सकवेशन शुरू हो जाएगा, उन्होंने ये ट्वीट की थी। अब उनके खिलाफ भी केस है, अब ये इस्लामोफोबिया हो गया।
हर चीज के अंदर इस्लामोफोबिक अगर ढूंढोगे, आपने जो फ्रिंज एलिमेंट की बात बताई,
अरे भाई इसमें इस्लामोफोबिया किधर से आया जुबैर साहब? लेट मी कोट टू यू अगेन। अभी तक जो FIR हुई है उसमें 31 नाम हैं, जिनमें से 19 मुसलमान हैं, बाकी के सब हिंदू हैं, जिसका मतलब देयर आर 40% पीपल बुक्ड हु आर हिंदूज आल्सो। हाउ इज दिस इस्लामोफोबिया?
मैडम आपको भी पता है, मुझे भी पता है कि ये पूरे मसले का बेस है नवीन जिंदल और
नहीं, मुझे नहीं पता है। आप ये कह रहे हैं कि अगर नवीन जिंदल ने वो डिस्गस्टिंग टिप्पणी की है, उसका मतलब हुआ कि जम्मू में कोई आदमी खड़ा होकर के सर काटने का धमकी दे, एंड वी आर सपोज्ड टू से नो दिस मैन मस्ट नॉट बी बुक्ड, अदरवाइज इट विल बी इस्लामोफोबिया।
लेट मी कंटिन्यू इट। नवीन जिंदल और नुपुर शर्मा को बुक करने के लिए,
अरे सर मैं आपको 10 वीडियो दिखा रही हूँ, आप नवीन जिंदल नुपुर शर्मा पे क्यों अटक गए हैं? माई सिंपल क्वेश्चन टू यू इज दैट इवन इफ नवीन जिंदल नुपुर शर्मा हैव सेड समथिंग,
पॉइंट ही नवीन जिंदल और नुपुर शर्मा है, इधर
कैसे
की जरूरत ही नहीं है।
कैसे? अरे नवीन, एक सेकेंड, अगर हम ये बात कर ही रहे हैं टीवी पे किए हुए कमेंट की, तो जितना नुपुर शर्मा ने बोला उससे 10 कदम आगे बढ़ करके इलियास शराफुद्दीन ने दूसरा टीवी डिबेट पे बोला, उसको फिर हम बोले कि भाई हिंदू फोबिया है पूरे देश में फैला हुआ।
मैडम आप बात को समझने की कोशिश ही नहीं कर रही हैं।
आप समझ नहीं रहे हैं।
इलियास शरफुद्दीन ने अगर कुछ कहा है, XYZ जो भी वो पर्सन है उसके ऊपर केस बुक करिए। पर नवीन जिंदल और नुपुर शर्मा के ऊपर केस बुक करने के लिए आपको 18 मुसलमान क्यों चाहिए?
अरे इलियास शराफुद्दीन के खिलाफ तो 10 दिन छोड़िए, अब जाकर के केस हुआ है, आज
जेल में डालिए।
इलियास शराफुद्दीन पे तो अब जाके केस हुआ है, नुपुर शर्मा पे तो 10 दिन में हो गया था।
दो हिंदुत्ववादी फैनेटिक्स को बुक करने के लिए आपको बैलेंस क्यों करना है केस को?
क्या बैलेंस की क्या बात है?
क्यों दिखाना है?
अरे
बैलेंस की भूमिका क्यों ले रही है?
जुबैर मेमन, आर यू सीरियसली सेइंग दैट यू कैन नॉट सी द प्रॉब्लम इन व्हाट इलियास शराफुद्दीन सेज? आप कह रहे हैं कि उनको सिर्फ बैलेंस करने के लिए बुक किया गया है। इसमें बैलेंस क्या है बॉस? वो तो इंसल्ट ही कर रहे हैं ना।
ये तो खुला खुला दिख रहा है कि बैलेंस की भूमिका ली जा रही है, और मैंने आपको दिल्ली स्पेशल स्केल का एक फैक्चुअल,
तो आप कह रहे हैं कि एक सेकंड, ओके प्रोफेसर संगीत रागी ये बैलेंस करने के लिए किया जा रहा है। रिस्पॉन्ड टू दैट, हाउ इज दिस अ बैलेंसिंग एक्ट? यस
Padmaja, first of all, my co-panelist is arguing that since Nupur Sharma has made a very derogatory comment against the Prophet, so whatever the language, the gutter that has been used, or the language of which meant for beheading the head of beheading Nupur Sharma has been talked about by many Muslim people are all justified. I'm asking a very simple question. Asauddin Owaisi brother few months back derided Ram, Lakshman, Durga, Saraswati, Lakshmi and many more gods and goddesses. Did anybody or the Hindu community hit the street that you please arrest him, और सर कलम कर दिया जाएगा, खत्म कर दिया जाएगा? This is the country where Bidi Chhap Ganesh Chhap Bidi is sold. Just a moment, sir, please. I didn't interrupt you. Here was the M.F. Hussain, who painted Goddess Durga, Goddess Saraswati in nude. I'm asking a very simple question. Hindus approached court. They didn't threaten that he should be beheaded. And finally, he had to take resile in a country which is an Islamic country. As far as foreign countries are concerned, there are several Maulanas who define kafir. Who is kafir to them? Hindus are kafir to them. Idolaters are kafir to them. And what is the punishment to the idolaters is all known. These countries, these Gulf countries, which are out and out Islamist, have no moral standard to speak against India at all. They are non-democratic, they are authoritarian and religiously fundamentalist countries. They have no business to talk about India and morality at all. What I am charging, and I am making a very serious charge, that the Islamists in India, along with the, their lobbyists in the Gulf, are trying to set a stage of unrest in this country, the way in the name of peasant movement, Kisan movement, with the help of the British separatists and the Canadian separatists and funded by them, was staged in this country for several months. Kanpur is a laboratory. Remember, they are trying to taste the water in light of what is happening in the Gyanvapi. So this is trying to create a kind of unrest so that the Hindus should not raise the issue of Gyanvapi. The Hindus should not raise the issue of Mathura Mosque. The Hindus should not raise about the demolition of the Dhar temple. The Hindus should not talk about the demolition and destruction of the temple at the Qutub Minar, 27 Jain temple.
Okay.
So this is a very different kind of a strategy that they have opted for.
And if an unrest will be created, the government of India and the police will take care of it.
Unacceptable.
But why is it, Vivek Srivastava, since you look so amused along with Zubair Memon,
that if somebody talks about, then his head should be, rolled down?
Why? Why is it that you can see what Nupur Sharma says, but you cannot see what Maulana Quddus has said, or what the man in Bhadarwa today has said?
Yes.
Nupur Sharma, and let me say it again and again.
Yes. See,
let's be very clear about one thing. What she has said is insulting.
Yes.
What the man in Bhadarwa has said, this cleric, it's a death threat. The two are not comparable. Let us, far from whitewashing or ignoring what has been said in Jammu, our reaction to that should be stronger. Nupur Sharma never came on TV and said that that man, I'm going to take him and his body will be found in one ditch and his head will be found in the other. Yet she gets a million times more attention and outrage and anger than this man standing in Jammu.
You are giving her a certificate.
Why?
You are giving Nupur Sharma a certificate of kindness.
This is how you obfuscate, my friend. What I am saying clearly, that while Nupur Sharma has made an offence, let's be absolutely clear that it is not comparable to what has been said in Jammu today. The Jammu comment is a death threat. What Nupur Sharma said is offensive. Do not even try and compare the two, Vivek Srivastava.
Yes. Okay. Fine. Now please let me speak. Okay. I do not know why you are comparing Nupur Sharma with somebody else. Do you know who's Nupur Sharma?
I'll tell you why I'm comparing. Since you said you don't know, I'll tell you why. Because Nupur Sharma's offense has got this kind of reaction.
My time now.
What happened in Jammu is right here.
You are disturbing me now.
Because you said I don't understand, so I'm helping you understand why I make the comparison.
You're not letting me speak. Yes,
because
so let me
you
speak for 30
asked for an understanding, I am helping you out. But go on.
I need my 30.
Yes, go on.
I need a minute to speak.
Go on.
You gave it to me. I don't need
You have your minute. Go on.
The fact that you were inviting Nupur Sharma again and again to your channel, and so were the other channels, is because she was the official spokesperson of the BJP, which is the party in power with 303 seats. Absolute majority. She was a spokesperson of the government. She was justifying the government and its policies. So if Nupur Sharma speaks and if Padmaja Joshi or Sabha Naqvi speak, they are different things.
Okay.
If Padmaja Joshi speaks, I'll say it is freedom of expression. आप एक जर्नलिस्ट हैं, आपको 100 खून माफ, लेकिन सरकार का जो नुमाइंदा है और स्पोक्सपर्सन है, you cannot be responsible.
So you're saying that Nupur Sharma making a comment is worse than a Maulana standing there and saying कि उसका सिर धड़ से अलग कर दो. Vivek Srivastava can run around saying मैं सिर धड़ से अलग कर दूंगा, but Vivek Srivastava is not the government spokesperson, so Vivek Srivastava is okay.
No, I have not said that.
Then?
Okay.
What is this comparison? Ki Nupur Srivastava must be hung from the nearest lamppost because she is a spokesperson of the ruling party. But a Maulana standing from a mosque and asking for beheading is given a complete, as if nobody even noticed this happened.
Why is Padmaja Joshi defending Nupur Sharma?
I am not defending. You can keep trying to obfuscate my friend. I have offered zero defense of Nupur Sharma. But if you are going to say that Nupur Sharma's offense is worse than a man calling for beheading, I will call out your bluff.
Represents the government. That is why her responsibility is more. You're not saying
okay, with me. Then what is the responsibility of Mahua Moitra? What is the responsibility of Mahua Moitra? Mahua Moitra sits in parliament. She's a member of parliament of the government which is in power in West Bengal, and she tweets an offensive meme about a shivling. What is her responsibility? Has she been sacked? She's sitting on television giving gyan on free speech and hate speech after tweeting that meme. Today her party supremo expressed concern about hate speech in India. Was anything said to Mahua Moitra? She still hasn't removed her tweet, my friend. So if you're talking about people in power, hold everyone accountable. Answer me. What is the accountability of Mahua Moitra?
I am not interested in your monologues.
Why? Why? Now you don't want to answer for Mahua Moitra. What action is taken against Mahua Moitra? Here is what Mamta Banerjee says today. Hold on a second. What does Mamta Banerjee say? The heinous hate speech of BJP spokespersons is terrible. I request to my brothers and sisters from other communities to maintain peace in the face of provocation. Because she hasn't seen what happened in Jammu. The only people provoking are Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal. People in Rajasthan not provoking, people in Agra not provoking, people in Jammu not provoking. Only people provoking are Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal. Why Vivek Srivastava?
He is not a fringe element. Nupur Sharma is not a fringe element. Nupur Sharma is not a fringe element.
Are you saying Mahua Moitra is a fringe element?
There's a problem.
Are you saying Mahua Moitra is a fringe element?
There were Gujarat riots.
Do you know that Bihari Lal Yadav is an MLC of the Samajwadi Party? He said things about a shivling that frankly you should be ashamed of as well, sir. Bihari Lal Yadav is not a fringe element either. Bihari Lal Yadav said, how is it that the private parts of Lord Shiv are made of stone? When the man
नौकरी जा रही है उस पर डिस्कस करिए आप संगीत रागी को नौकरी से फर्क नहीं पड़ता जहां प्रोफेसर की नौकरी कर रहे हैं जिनको गल्फ से भगाया जा रहा है 60,000 हिंदुस्तानियों को प्राइमरीली हिंदूज को कौन रिस्पांसिबल है internationally Europe America
I'm sorry I sort of lost you there in the middle. What is this parallel track that you've gone on to Vivek Srivastava? My simpler point was, if you're talking about people in power, hold on a second. Let's ask a specific question. पूरा विश्व तो हम पे थूक नहीं रहा दोस्त. कल फॉरेन मिनिस्टर ईरान के हमारे प्रधानमंत्री के साथ बैठे हुए थे. आप थूक रहे होंगे, विश्व तो नहीं थूक रहा है. And we will soon host people from other Islamic countries also. So these might be your favored fantasies, but पूरा विश्व हम पे नहीं थूक रहा है. Don't worry about that. Sangeet Ragi wants to respond, then I will get in. Huzaifa also. Yes, go on, Sangeet Ragi.
First, couple of points, Padmaja. First of all, Nupur is was the spokesperson of Bharatiya Janata Party. She might have defended, or she might have defended as a spokesperson of the BJP also the policies of the government, but she was not the spokesperson of the government at all. And that is what, in submission to the questions that have been raised by the foreign embassies, the external ministry has said that individual opinion or whatever somebody expresses, that should not be treated as the expression or the articulation of the government of India's policy or the government of India's position. Number one. Number two, whatever crime, it is still judiciable, and Nupur Sharma will be subjected to judicial scrutiny, her statement. But can you, in a civilized democratic society, say that she should be beheaded, she should be raped? Is this the kind of Talibani mindset that we want to create? We have 300 Ramayans, Vivek Srivastava, and this was being taught in University of Delhi. We know that the Sahmat was funded by Arjun Singh, and what Sahmat used to have the exhibition in Ayodhya, that Ram and Sita were sisters and brothers. Was this not insulting? When somebody was saying that Ram doesn't exist, you were asking for the proof for Lord Ram, and if somebody asks the proof or somebody else, then it is insult to somebody, or it is insult to
it is insult we to don't even need to go down in history. Let me quote to you the events of the last 1 week. Last week, a rally was carried out on the streets of Chennai where the DK members were heard saying that Krishna was a rapist. No action was taken. Today, that man in Jammu, standing on top of a mosque, said that Hindus drink cow piss and they roll around in cow shit. And yet, nobody, even though a case has been filed, how many people do you see who are on the streets baying for his blood? And rightly so, because that's what happens in a decent democracy, and that is where you come in, Huzaifa Amir Rashadi. At the very least, instead of constantly saying this is Islamophobia, is there at least a recognition to say that these fringe elements also exist? Huzaifa Amir Rashadi? People who are standing atop mosques and asking for beheading? Huzaifa, you are muted. Go on.
भी होनी चाहिए। मैम, जहां तक कार्रवाई की बात है, हेट स्पीच की बात है, तो ये शुरुआत बहुत पहले हो जानी चाहिए थी। 2014 के बाद अगर हम लोगों ने देखा इस मुल्क में, तो लगातार जिस तरीके से लोगों ने हेट स्पीच दी, कोई बोलता है कि गोली मार दो डैश डैश, कोई कुछ बोलता है, यतीमानंद ने पता नहीं क्या क्या बोला। अगर ये शुरुआत उसी वक्त हो गई होती तो इस तरह की हिमाकत किसी की नहीं होती कि किसी भी धर्म के ऊपर इस तरह की टिप्पणी करें या किसी के भी रिलीजन को ठेस पहुंचाए। तो कहीं ना कहीं बढ़ावा दिया गया मौजूदा सरकार के जरिए, मौजूदा हुकूमत के जरिए उसको फ्लो दिया गया कि बोलने दो, उससे पोलराइजेशन होगा, हिंदू मुसलमान
बढ़ावा दिया
हमें
गया,
बेनिफिट पहुंचेगा।
थोड़ा स्पेसिफिक बोलेंगे, किसको बढ़ावा दिया है मौजूदा सरकार ने?
मैम, आप डेली डिबेट करती हैं, आपको खुद समझदार है, मुझे नहीं लगता कि आपको बताने की जरूरत है।
बताइए ना,
आप बता,
आपसे कम समझदार हूँ, बताइए ना।
नहीं, आप बताइए, ज्यादा अच्छा लगेगा।
आप ज्यादा समझदार है ना। तो आप कह रहे हैं कि नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार ने ये जो लोग जम्मू में दिख रहे हैं, इनको बढ़ावा दिया है कि ये आकर हिंदुओं को गाली दे रहे हैं। ये मोदी जी ने बोला है इनको कि जाओ भाई गाली दो और कहो कि सर कलम कर देंगे। इनको बढ़ावा किसने दिया है हुजैफा?
पद्मजा, आपको जम्मू ही दिखेगा सिर्फ, आपको कानपुर ही दिखेगा सिर्फ।
एक बार जम्मू की भी बात कर लीजिए ना। चलिए, नुपुर शर्मा गलत हैं, मैंने बोल दिया। नवीन जिंदल गलत हैं, ठीक है। ये जो जम्मू में आदमी खड़ा है, इसको कौन बढ़ावा दे रहा है? इसको बढ़ावा कौन दे रहा है? इनको बढ़ावा कौन दे रहा है? स्पेसिफिक बात करते हैं।
स्पेसिफिक बात करते हैं। आपने बोला नुपुर शर्मा गलत हैं, तो अगर वक्त रहते नुपुर शर्मा पे कार्रवाई हो जाती।
नुपुर शर्मा हो गया ना, 10 दिन हो गए हुजैफा। जम्मू की बात कीजिए, जम्मू में जो ये आदमी खड़ा है, इसको बढ़ावा किसने दिया?
आप पहले उस पे आइए, पहले एक एपिसोड क्लियर कर लें। नुपुर शर्मा,
मैं इसी एपिसोड पे बात करना चाहती हूँ। जम्मू के इस आदमी को सर कलम करने का बढ़ावा किसने दिया, बताइए।
नहीं, आपने नुपुर शर्मा पे पहले बात कीजिए ना।
नुपुर शर्मा पे मैं 5 दिन से बात कर रही हूँ। आज बताइए कि भदरवा में जो ये आदमी कह रहा है कि हिंदू, उनके बारे में जो व्हाट दे हैव सेड कि दे आर गोबर ईटर्स एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, इसको बढ़ावा किसने दिया?
पता नहीं, मैंने देखा भी नहीं है वीडियो, मैं जानता भी नहीं उस पे।
अरे कोई बात नहीं, सुना देते हैं आपको। चलिए, कोई बात नहीं। अरे नुपुर शर्मा की क्लिप तो लोगों ने ऐसे फॉरवर्ड किया ऐसे पता नहीं उनका मतलब दिस इज द बिगेस्ट क्राइम ऑफ द सेंचुरी। इसको 5 घंटे हो गए, आपने सुना तक नहीं हुजैफा। आप तो इतने पढ़े लिखे हैं, इतने सोशली सैवी हैं, आपको नहीं मिला ये व्हाट्सएप पे वीडियो? अभी नुपुर शर्मा को तो आपको 10 सेकंड में मिल गया होगा। कोई बात नहीं, आपको सुना देते हैं, फिर आपकी प्रतिक्रिया लेंगे। कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं, हो जाता है कभी, आप व्यस्त रहते हैं, सुना देते हैं आपको। कम ऑन, लेट्स प्ले इट।
लेकिन सर्व को कलम करना भी सिखाते हैं। तो इसलिए बातों को जहन में बिठा दो। हम खामोश तब तक है जब तक हमारा बर्दाश्त कायम है। बर्दाश्त से बाहर निकल गए तो फिर वो नुपुर शर्मा क्या, वो आशीष कोहली क्या, वो नुपुर शर्मा क्या, उनके सर कहीं और घर कहीं मिलेंगे। और मैं नबी का कलमे पढ़ने वाला मुसलमान खुद मैदान में आए और ये फकवे भी हमारे दुश्मन, आरएसएस भी हमारी दुश्मन है। तो इसलिए मैं अंजुमन इस्लामिया की तरफ से तमाम अवाम का शुक्रिया करता हूँ। मैंने जैसे पहले ही अर्ज किया कि ये अमन को खराब करने वाले अनासिर हैं, कभी अजान पे कभी पर्दे पे। तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को चाहिए जो अजान के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े, अगर जो पर्दे के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े।
बताइए हुजैफा, इनको किसने एम्बोल्डन किया है?
तो ये हो क्यों रहा है मैम, इसकी हमें जड़ में जाना चाहिए ना।
बताइए ना, आप जड़ तक जाइए, जड़ तक आप एनालाइज करके बताइए।
मैं वही बता रहा हूँ। तो आप कह रहे हैं कि आपने 5 डिबेट कर लिया नुपुर शर्मा पे। अगर नुपुर शर्मा की अरेस्टिंग हो गई होती टाइम पे कि उन्होंने एक हिंदुस्तान क्या बल्कि दुनिया में एक रिलीजन को मानने वाले लोगों की ठेस पहुंचाई, उनके रिलीजन पे बोल करके, उनके मैसेंजर प्रॉफिट पे बोल
तो उनका सर कलम कर देंगे। नुपुर शर्मा ने बोला, गलत बोला।
आप अपनी
वो किसी को हक देता है कि उनको मॉस्क से कॉल दें कि हम सर कलम कर देंगे।
आप अपनी जबान मेरे मुंह मत डालिए। मैंने बोला क्या सर कलम कर देंगे? मैंने बोला,
वो तो ये बोल रहे हैं।
बोला,
आप बताइए ना, इनको एम्बोल्डन कौन कर रहा है? इसकी जड़ बताइए, जड़ बताइए ना, जड़ बताइए।
आप वर्ड्स डालेंगे मेरे मुंह में? आप
बिल्कुल नहीं डालेंगे, सवाल पूछ रही हूँ, इसकी जड़ बताइए।
सवाल तो जवाब सुनिए तो पहले,
बताइए ना।
30 सेकंड सुन लीजिए, रिएक्ट कीजिएगा उस पर।
बोलिए ना।
बीच में इंटरप्ट करते रहेंगे तो
आप कर ही नहीं रहे, आप टाइम क्यों बर्बाद कर रहे हैं? बोलिए ना।
मैं टाइम नहीं बर्बाद कर रहा, मैं उसी पे आ रहा हूँ कि नुपुर शर्मा की अगर गिरफ्तारी नेक्स्ट डे हो गई होती, जिस दिन उसने स्टेटमेंट दिया, तो लोग सड़क पे आते ही नहीं, लोग प्रोटेस्ट करते ही नहीं, लोग बोलते ही नहीं। स्लिप ऑफ टंग होता हो सकता है जज्बात में कुछ ज्यादा बोल गए, जिससे आपने अपनी वीडियो दिखाई है, वो स्लिप ऑफ टंग हो गया होगा उनसे। मगर नुपुर शर्मा ने गलत किया कि नहीं, आप बताइए। उनकी गिरफ्तारी
तो ये बताइए मेरे को हुजैफा, अगर ये सर कलम करने की बात जज्बात में कर रहे हैं तो नुपुर शर्मा ने भी शायद जज्बात में ही बोला हो जो बोला टीवी पे। नुपुर शर्मा को जज्बात में आने का कोई हक नहीं है, और ये जज्बात में आके वायलेंस का कॉल दे देंगे और आप टीवी पे बैठ के कहेंगे शायद जज्बात में बह गए। ये कैसे जज्बात है हुजैफा?
हाँ सुनिए मैडम, लास्ट डिबेट में आपने खुद बोला था, मैंने सुना भी 1-2 डिबेट में कि साहब एक्शन का रिएक्शन होता है, तो एक्शन करिए मत, रिएक्शन नहीं होगा। क्या जरूरत थी?
बिल्कुल नहीं, उनको किसी भी एक्शन का ना 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 ना, ये आपने बोला है, और किसी भी एक्शन का ये रिएक्शन नहीं हो सकता सर। लेट्स बी एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर, एंड इफ यू आर गोइंग टू सिट हियर एंड जस्टिफाई एन एक्शन रिएक्शन थियरी एंड से बिकॉज somebody has made a comment people are going to give a call for beheading, then I just quoted to you at least 5 instances. And it is not even fringe, sir. There are mainstream academics, journalists, what have you, who do not think twice before saying they are Gomutra drinkers. People from the north are like this. Why don't you go and do it for the Gomutra drinkers? Nobody goes out and gives such call for them. People leave the debate when they are faced with uncomfortable questions. Amna Begum Ansari, do you think this is action reaction?
If this is action reaction, then Muslim would be very careful before speaking anything and before doing anything, because we are most of the time, we do not think much and we go for the violence. And imagine when there are riots initiated by the Muslim, what reaction then would be for that. So it sounds very nice to say that action reaction, but let me be very clear also, this is not reaction. If we see about the Muslim community, as a Muslim we have to acknowledge that there is a problem where we literally believe that a response to blasphemy should be violence and killing, and this has been happening around the world. The problem is that instead of addressing our problem and talking about the issue, we like to do the waterboarding and put all the fault on others. We like to accuse others for our own problem, our own shortcomings. So that's we never have to introspect. And Padmaja, let me tell you one thing. I mean, it's okay. अगर नुपुर शर्मा ने कुछ गलत बोला था, her tone is not very
it's not okay.
Not
it's
very
not
respectable.
Okay.
So
it's completely
BJP
not okay.
has suspended.
BJP
has suspended. Let me speak. Let me speak. BJP has
it's
suspended
okay.
her, and that
it's
acknowledged the grievances of Muslim community.
Don't
right now, see here. The point is how Muslim society are going to tackle the issue of hate sentiment and blasphemy. Are we going to take the legal route, which is there by the law of the land, or we are going to act as a, barbarians? We are going to act as an uncivilized society and call for the violence, call for her, behead her. So we have to come forward. Yeah, we have to
and this, by the way, is a debate that is going on universally. Hurt sentiment cannot, will not, and should never be an excuse for this kind of hate speech, sir. And then to discount and ignore this kind of hate speech is encouraging it even more. Zubair Memon.
जो आपने अभी वीडियो दिखाई हेट स्पीच की, ये कंप्लीटली नागवार है, इसको एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया जा सकता। लोकल पुलिस ने उसके ऊपर सख्त से सख्त कार्रवाई लेनी चाहिए, पर इस तरीके की हेट स्पीच दिखाकर या सुनकर हम कहीं भी नुपुर शर्मा की गुनाह को कम नहीं बता सकते।
कम कोई नहीं बता रहा सर। My question is very different. जुबैर साहब, एक सेकंड। My question is very different. My question is why the difference in reaction to both? Treat both with the same amount of anger. अगर आपको नुपुर शर्मा पे गुस्सा आ रहा है, आपको उस पे भी उतना ही गुस्सा आना चाहिए। उसको लेकर के वॉट अबाउटरी नहीं होनी चाहिए कि वो इसलिए बोल रहे हैं क्योंकि वो नाराज हो गए, क्योंकि वो भावनाओं में बह गए। नो
मैम, मैंने
दिस हैज टू बी ट्रीटेड विद इक्वल कॉन्डमनेशन।
आपने दिखाया है, इफ इट इज नॉट अडल्टरेटेड, ये बहुत ही बड़ा क्राइम है, गलत है, नहीं होना चाहिए। द पर्सन सेइंग दैट शुड बी बिहाइंड बार्स।
Absolutely great. And yet now in a corner you are saying it, sir. Let me remind you that it has been at least 5 hours that this video has been out, and not a single notable has commented on this video from Jammu. Contrast that from the reaction that Nupur Sharma invited. The point is simple. Hate speech is hate speech. If you do not reserve the same kind of outrage for hate speech from both sides, if you try to paint one side perpetually as the victim, you will be doing the biggest disservice to the country. That can't be allowed to happen, and this man will definitely be jailed. Thanks very much, all gentlemen. Amna Begum Ansari for joining me. Four days from now, Congress MP Rahul Gandhi is scheduled to face the Enforcement Directorate in the Associated Journal Young Indian case as Congress MP prepares to answer ED questions on allegations of amassing disproportionate income and then concealing that income in his IT returns when he was one of the directors of Young Indian. His party members are gearing up to hit the streets in protest. Come Monday, Congress leaders will be staging nationwide protests. Why, you ask? To give moral support to the Gandhi side, who according to them is being hounded by the central agencies. The BJP is now citing Prime Minister Narendra Modi's example when he was the CM of Gujarat. They are reminding the Congress that 12 years ago, Modi appeared before an SIT that was probing the 2002 riots. The head of the probe team, R.K. Raghavan, has recalled the 9-hour-long marathon questioning where Modi answered over 100 questions. Now, the question being asked is that the Congress, is it scared? Is that what is compelling them to resort to grandstanding on the streets? And why is it when the sitting chief minister of a state can submit himself for questioning before an SIT that Rahul Gandhi's party wants to give him this kind of shield?
We want to stand by our leader. We know he's being hounded. We know our leadership is being hounded by the BJP because the BJP is afraid of the Gandhi family, and we've seen this happening ever since they've come to power. So yes, we want to stand by the truth. We want to stand by our leaders.
When summoned by the Enforcement Directorate in the National Herald case, both Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi, instead of cooperating with the law, have now resorted to excuse making and confrontation. As Rahul Gandhi on the date of his summoning has now summoned the MPs of Congress party so that they can protest and do confrontation instead of cooperation.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
RP Singh, national spokesperson of BJP, joins us along with Priyanka Tibrewal, lawyer. We also have Kapil Madan and Dr. Sumansi Raman, both political analysts. Dr. Sumansi Raman, it's a process. Why this entire march?
Padmaja, is it not obvious that the Congress party has very categorically called this a witch hunt and politically motivated case? Now, they are organizing a peaceful protest march on the day that Mr. Rahul Gandhi faces the questioning from the ED, just to let the public know what they feel is their point of view on.
But how do you know that this is a witch hunt?
Well, how long has this case been going on?
Okay.
It's been going on for years and years. Nothing has been found.
So you're saying
nothing has been.
So you're saying that the ED is basically a handmaiden of the government?
Caged parrot. What did the former CBI director say about his agency?
He said that about the CBI. He said that about the CBI.
Whether it's the ED,
this is the ED.
Whether
Okay,
it is
great.
the CBI, whether it is the income tax, they are pretty much caged parrots.
Really? Now, interesting anecdote. Let me narrate to you an interesting anecdote from the 26th of November 2021. Just a second, Dr. Sumansi Raman, since we're talking about the ED and what the Congress thinks of the ED as a caged parrot, 26th of November 2021. Enforcement Directorate raided 8 places across Punjab in connection with money laundering case against Surinder Pal Singh Pahalwan, former chief engineer, and somebody close to the Badal family. Congress hailed the action. Punjab Congress President Navjot Singh Sidhu and Charanjit Singh Channi welcomed the timely action by the Enforcement Directorate. मतलब बादल के ऊपर action हो, then ED is a stellar organization. But the moment it happens to Rahul Gandhi, then ED is caged parrot. Why, sir?
Take the history
the
of
parrot
this
is
case,
flying in case of Badal, but parrot gets caged in the case of Rahul Gandhi. You can't have this differential treatment of parrots.
No, every political party has no problem when their rivals are raided.
Exactly.
The point is, one second, you answer my question. Take this case. When was this case filed? What has happened in this case over the last 5-6 years?
That doesn't matter,
since
sir.
This case has been, it does matter.
It takes its own course. Now you want me to take you through the timeline of the case against the Badals and the raids? That also took several years. But the Congress found it absolutely outstanding. The thing is,
today people don't want the law to take its course. They want justice to be done. Nobody wants the law taking its course.
Justice will be done when Mr. Gandhi appears.
In this country. Every criminal comes, smiles in front of the camera and says law will take its own course, knowing that they are very likely to get away with it.
Okay, RP Singh, you have already proven a sad track record, which is why the Congress is doing a peaceful pradarshan. Why are you so uppity about it, RP Singh?
I have to give the answer in 2 parts. One is that they are out on bail. If there's a case which has been put on them wrongfully, then they could have gone to the court to get it quashed. Then they took a bail in the case. One. Secondly, it reminds me of the Egyptian pharaohs when they used to take people along with them. There's something like that. And in Hindi, when we say Ali Baba 40 chor wala kahawat hai, bhai, you tell us the root of the complete thing. The root is that money which was collected on name of the donations by the poor, and then people would have donated 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 100 rupees to Congress party. You took that money in your company and bought a company which has worth thousands of crore rupees. This is the story. Now, ED want to put everything together. So what's wrong in it? And
what is wrong in it? And again, what is sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Let me quote to you just a very recent example. BJP leader and businessman Mohit Kamboj has been booked by the Maharashtra government in a fraud case, and he had to apply for anticipatory bail. Everyone hailed it. Again, in another case, you have In Maharashtra again, you have a case of disproportionate assets being filed against former Maharashtra BJP MLA Narendra Mehta and his wife. This was done by the Anti-Corruption Bureau. So when you do it in Maharashtra against BJP guys, Kapil Madan, it's absolutely fine. But when ED does it, supposedly it is a witch hunt. We can keep going back to a number of these examples.
So Padmaja ji, I heard Mr. RP Singh saying and was saying that you should get it twice. So it is a case where, you know, the pot is calling the kettle black, and I'll give you an example of it. Now, if you see what happened in the, you know, recent part in Tejinder Bagga's case, Tejinder Bagga was arrested by Punjab police. Why they were on the streets? Why they were on the street? Every single leader was standing by Tejinder Bagga, and Mr. RP Singh was also there. So the fact of the matter is, if a person or a party believes that any action against their leader is wrong, is motivated, is happening in a malafide manner, there would be show of support, there would be show of strength.
Okay, now, go on. RP Singh, because this is about you, this is directed at you, answer this.
I have another point to make.
Okay, very quickly let him respond to the point you made about him protesting for Mr. Bagga. Go on, RP Singh.
No.
Let Mr. Singh respond at least, because then we'll go on and on. RP Singh, quickly respond.
Let him make the point. Let him make the second point also.
Very quickly, RP Singh, make your point, please.
Please. No, very simple. Here they are out. I mean, Bagga was being kidnapped by the police. Here they are out on bail. They went to court. They seek bail. And this is the difference. And again, I'm saying, which tell me, will Congress party give me 90 crore rupees to buy a company? Will Congress party give me 90 crore or Kapil Madan 90 crore to buy a company? And that too company led by family of Kapil Madan.
जवाब नहीं है आपके पास, जवाब नहीं है आरपी सिंह जी आपके पास. आप होने देते इन्वेस्टिगेशन, जाने देते बग्गा को पंजाब के अंदर.
अच्छी कपिल मदान, आप पढ़े लिखे वकील आदमी हैं, अच्छी बात नहीं है. मैंने टोका आपको क्या?
प्रियंका टिब्रेवाल.
और मैं आपको एक और बात बताता हूँ.
एक सेकंड, प्रियंका टिब्रेवाल
के बारे में बात करी.
आपका हो गया तो मैं
आपकी
प्रियंका टिब्रेवाल.
I do not really appreciate what the Congress spokesperson mentioned here regarding the timing and duration, because he should be well aware when you are questioning or when a case is of a disproportionate asset. If we see in the past, there was a case of Jayalalitha, which started sometimes in the year 91 and 96. And it was the accused was convicted sometimes in 2017. So law takes its own course and it takes time. And they should have believed in the law of the land, because here we believe in the maxim that, you know, maybe 100 of people can be acquitted, but an innocent shouldn't go behind. So if Rahul Gandhi and the family is innocent, why are they so petrified? Why aren't they facing the law? Why aren't they facing the investigation? They are on bail, and whatever display they are doing today is complete psychopathy. With this display of strength, you tell me, did Tejinder Bagga or the BJP tell anyone that you please come on the streets and support me? No, it didn't. And whatever political vendetta they are claiming today is completely, there is no, it's completely passively absurd.
Kapil Madan.
You are questioning the ED and the
it takes time. The point made about Jayalalitha. Kapil Madan.
Let me respond. Let me respond to her. This particular case registered by the ED was registered in 2014. We are in 2022. The alleged transaction happened in 2012. If you are not able to complete the investigation in 8 years of time, then I don't know what to say about your capability.
And
it shows only two things.
Who will
It shows you want to keep the pot simmering. You want to keep the pot simmering. You don't want conclusion either ways. If you have evidence, you file a complaint. You don't do that. You don't close the ECIR. You want to claim.
The case of Jayalalitha was in 91 and final conviction was in 2017.
Just politics around it. You just want to get political mileage out of it.
Okay, this is political mileage. Again, you know, we can keep going on and on quoting cases. This same income tax department, by the way, Suman C. Raman, you would remember, suddenly 2012, cases of Purti were lodged against Nitin Gadkari. That there is disproportionate assets, there's malfeasance on the part of Mr. Nitin Gadkari. Till the time that the UPA was in power, even in its last breaths in 2013-14, they kept issuing summons to Nitin Gadkari and the case went nowhere. Why? Why didn't they arrest him? Kapil Madan is saying na कि भाई you do it quickly. If they had evidence against him, instead of summoning him, why didn't they arrest him? Where is the evidence?
1 second. How many years were the cases pending against the Purti group?
But then to they went out of power.
No, second point. This is a case of money laundering without money. It's an incredible case. There is no, I don't know whether you saw the statement Mr. Chidambaram had put out. How can there be money laundering without money?
But sir, that is not for you to decide. That is for the courts to decide. RP Singh wants to respond.
I agree, but the point is the reason that this matter has gone on and on and on.
No, for Sumanti Raman, 90 crore is no money. Because the poor man money was donated to Congress party because they were in power.
Sir, what is the case? Please explain now. What is the money laundering charge here?
To Congress party.
Tell me, sir.
And that 90 crore rupees money was transferred to the company owned by the Gandhis. And then
No. Who transferred the money? Who transferred the money? Who transferred the money? Tell me.
No. How
much money was transferred?
Dr. Sumansi Raman, it's a fact that these cases are so old and so layered that neither can you nor RP Singh nor I or anyone sit on TV in a 20-minute debate and decode it. The point is that to have a protest like this or a show of strength on the streets, if you have an SIT that has questioned the then Chief Minister Narendra Modi for several hours and made him answer 100 questions, surely the former Congress president can also submit himself to similar scrutiny and questioning without making it seem as this giant, crushing of democracy. I'm going to leave it at that. We'll, of course, be focused on what happens on Monday when Mr. Gandhi appears. For the time being, thank you very much, gentlemen. Priyanka Tibrewal for joining me.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break. Times now. Action begins here. You're watching the News Hour at 10. The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break. Times now. Action begins here.
क्या पूछूं आपसे कि आपका जो स्टे था कांग्रेस पार्टी में, ये शॉर्ट एंड स्वीट था कि हॉट एंड सावर था?
जब राजनीति में कोई फैसले होते हैं मैडम जी, तब एक बात बहुत तय होती है कि लोगों के हित के लिए, जनता की सेवा के लिए ये फैसला होना चाहिए, और उसी को देखते हुए ये फैसला लिया गया था। लेकिन जहां गए, जिस कांग्रेस पार्टी पर भरोसा किया, उनके नेताओं पर जो भरोसा किया, उससे एक बात तो तय हो गई थी कि ना ये जन सेवा करना चाहते हो, ना कोई करता है उसको रोकने का काम करते हैं। जो जन सेवा करना चाहता है उसको रोक दो, हम नहीं करना चाहते तो हमारे साथ जुड़ जाओ, और ये काम हम नहीं कर सकते थे। हम आंदोलन के जरिए
You're watching the News Hour at 10. Times now. Action begins here.
For the last 2 years, the world has been relentlessly fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. As the countries across the globe prioritize vaccinations to keep the next wave of COVID at bay, India also rolled out precautionary jabs this year to achieve herd immunity against the virus. While COVID has not risen substantially in India in the last few months, the pandemic has not yet faded. India has remained on guard, but vaccination among children remains low and is significantly less talked about.
Immunizing the kids will not only check the spread of the asymptomatic infections, who can act as silent hosts for the virus, and which will lead to again spread in the society, but again it can also mitigate the severity, the intensity of the infection in children. Now that the schools have reopened, it is very important that the children are vaccinated. A lot of parents are still hesitant about sending the children to school, but definitely children should no longer stay at home. They should definitely go to school, and so to vaccinate them. By vaccinating them, we can allay this fear in the parents' mind. Almost 40% of pediatric deaths below the age of 20 years were in the age group of 0 to 9 years. Majority of infection in children are asymptomatic infection. Almost 70 to 80% of children have very minimal infections or they remain asymptomatic. Want to check the spread of the virus. Almost 60 to 65% of the adult population has been fully vaccinated with the successful ongoing vaccination program. So if you want to take up the figure to a much higher level, say 80 to 90%, it is important that the children are advocated the vaccine, and that is possibly the only way to end this pandemic.
A quick roundup of all the stories coming in after Mangalore court order status quo in the Malai Jama Masjid survey case. The Hindu side today argued against Muslim lawyers who claim that the property of Mulali Jamia Masjid comes under the Waqf property. In fact, the Hindu side also requested the court not to lift the stay order. Condemning targeted killings in the valley, members of Jammu and Kashmir Rashtriya Muslim Manch organized a protest march in Srinagar. Well, days after Shiv Sena demanded security for Kashmiri Hindus in the valley, party MP Priyanka Chaturvedi met family members of Rahul Bhatt, who was brutally murdered in the targeted killings.
Times now. Action begins here.
evening, hello and welcome. You're tuned into Times Now. This is News Now Overnight and I'm Poonam Burde. There's lots lined up for you over the next 1 hour where we're going to get you all that's made headlines, not just here in the country but around the world as well. But first up, a quick check of the headlines. Uniform crackdown on hate mongers. Owaisi, Yati Narsinganand, Nupur Sharma, Sabanakwi booked. But Owaisi calls it a fake balance wad. Spine-chilling threat from Jammu. Calls given to behead suspended BJP leader Nupur Sharma. Will Owaisi and company condemn this threat too? Entitled VVIP brat caught on camera abusing policemen in Karnataka. MLA's daughter boasts of her father's credentials. BJP netas duck and dodge. Crackdown continues in Kanpur. Another CCTV video shows how pelters rained stones, but apologists say Muslims being singled out for rioting. Actor Salman Khan escaped death even as Lawrence Bishnoi's sharpshooters made him the prime target. Exclusive details of the plot unravels on Times Now. Congress leaders ready to hit the streets in protest on the day of Rahul Gandhi's appearance before the ED. BJP says shows sign of guilt. Gold scam accused Swapna Suresh lays bare details of alleged cover-up attempts by Pinarayi Vijayan government. Opposition guns for the Chief Minister. Countdown to Rajya Sabha elections and end of resort politics tomorrow. MLAs across 4 states squander your money to ensure upper hand in the Rajya Sabha. Top DMK functionary accused of seeking genocide of Brahmins, citing Dravidian ideologue Periyar. Subramanian Swamy of the BJP asked poll panel to de-recognize the DMK. Our top story at this hour is that of VVIP arrogance and entitlement, which has been caught in camera this time around in Bengaluru. Karnataka BJP MLA Arvind Limbavadi's daughter was seen misbehaving with the police after she was fined for allegedly violating traffic rules. She was driving rashly was the charge against her. The BJP leader's daughter was reportedly stopped by the police for rash driving, like I said. But what happened after that is perhaps these men in uniform did not expect. She entered into an altercation with the police, allegedly abusing them. There were journalists around that tried to record this incident, where she even tried to push away the camera in one of those videos that we will be putting out for you. Now, this MLA's daughter is heard asking the cops, "Do you know who my father is?" A sense of entitlement where she thinks she can get away with anything just because her father is an elected member of the House there. Now, when Times Now confronted MLA Arvind Limbavadi over this incident, he furnished a shocking defense. He says 1,000 such incidents happen. Listen in to what the MLA had to say when Times Now's Imran confronted him.
Then they stopped the car. Obviously, because of the security reasons, police vehicles were more moving, and just they overtook their vehicle and they stopped further, and immediately they entered into the hotel. Then she said, "Why you are stopping us? We are going ahead." Then they said, "It is a rash driving." If it is a rash driving, you fine it. If it is noted somewhere else, recorded, then you fine it. Then they have, because of the police, then she said, "I am a daughter of Arvind Limbavadi." Then they said, "Okay, your rash driving is there, and fine, you remit the fine." And that boy has remitted the fine unnecessarily. If I was there, I could not pay the. It was not rash driving. They were crossing in front of the Capital Hotel.
Yeah.
Because of the security, they have stopped. Then they said the reason, rash driving. They have paid 500 rupees fine.
Now, she also assaulted a media person, sir.
No.
Sir, there is a visuals of reporter being assaulted. The channel also.
No, I'm telling. I saw the video.
Yeah.
If you see it and then you tell me, then I will like it. And whoever made the mistake, I am the first person to find it. If my daughter or son, whoever may be,
Yeah.
or myself.
So the whole point is that, sir, it's a VVIP racism, leaks of VVIP racism, sir. She goes on to violate the first of all the rash driving. Then she is
She is not a driver, first of all, my dear friend.
Yeah.
She is not a driver. Driver was some other person.
So when cops stopped her, she said she threw tantrum saying that I am the minister, your daughter.
What is the wrong in it? I am the daughter of MLA.
Yeah.
Who is your father? If you ask, somebody ask you,
Yeah.
what you will tell?
No, there's a point of saying it, sir. I understand. I mean, she can say that she's your daughter, but the point of saying is to prove her authority. The second point is to say, convey that I'm daughter.
They have paid the fine also, no? If they could have argued with that,
Yeah.
that is a different story. If
Yeah.
you are saying you have to fine, then they have paid the 500 rupees fine.
Yeah.
What is the mistake?
So you don't see anything wrong in what happened there?
No, nowadays in Bangalore, yesterday I was telling my friend,
Yeah.
this we have to make some law about the rash driving of this home services are there now.
Yeah.
The company have put the condition that they have to reach within a time.
Yeah.
15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
If they will not reach,
Yeah.
they will be their payment will be deducted.
No, that's fine, sir. But I'm saying that she also slapped a media person there.
In general, Bangalore.
Yeah. She also slapped a media person there.
No, wrong. It is wrong.
You heard that defense coming to the fore from the BJP MLA there. What's even more shocking is that we asked him those questions for a second time, and even then he was unrepentant. He did not feel it appropriate to apologize for his daughter's behavior. Listen in.
There are two aspects in this. One was per the police reports, over-speed riding. The driver was her friend Tarun. He has been penalized. Second part, you are saying about the hurt of the reporters. If at all she hurt, she humiliated on behalf of her, if at all, underline, if at all, go and check the video. If at all it happened, I beg your pardon for that.
I beg your pardon if media persons were targeted is what the MLA says, but absolutely no remorse or an apology for the kind of words that his daughter used against the men in khaki there who were on duty, and all they were doing was their job. Unfortunately, now this MLA and his daughter have put the BJP in a tight spot. We tried to confront the state ministers, but both the Chief Minister and the Home Minister were seen ducking and dodging our questions.
Sir, so one response from the, sir, your MLA, sir, your MLA, so former president's daughter has been accused, sir, for misbehaving with cops and media, sir. Sir, response. Sir, so one response from the, sir, your MLA, sir, your MLA, so former president's daughter has been accused, sir, for misbehaving with cops and media, sir. Sir, response. Sir, so one response from the, sir, your MLA, sir, your MLA, so former president's daughter has been accused, sir, for misbehaving with cops and media, sir. Sir, response. Sir, there is allegation of Arvind Limbauli's daughter misbehaving with the cops, sir. Your department, sir. Police, you misbehaved with the cops, sir. Your response to that, sir.
Imran is with me for more on this. Now, Imran, we saw how senior leaders of the BJP in the state, ministers, even the chief minister, were trying to duck and dodge for cover. They had no answers to the questions that you were posing to them. Yes, it is completely outrageous about the behavior that has come to the fore from this MLA's daughter. But has the opposition in the state picked it up yet?
Well, there is opposition is criticized the high-handedness of the MLA's daughter, but they themselves were busy in the CLP meeting today. There is no official statement coming yet from the opposition, but to ensure tomorrow they're going to latch on to this incident, what happened, right? At the resort where the BJP legislative party meet was happening, and and the entire fracas happened there right in front of the media, and media person was able to capture it. There's an overspeeding of the car for which the stopped her, asking them to pay the fine. The lady in question happens to be the BJP senior leader, his mother, and he comes in the car and he says that you know who my father is, trying to throw a weight around the fact that he's an American daughter, and that's to the kind of what so in life it crosses the signal. Even when he's going for office, the cops fine him, and that's what officer on duty did. They fined her with a fine of 900 rupees and asked her to pay, and that's when the entire fracas continued. And the media person who was there to record it, and she goes on to even slap the camera and try to push him aside, and that entire episode has been caught on camera. When we took the question straight to Arvind Limbavali, he says these kind of incidents happened, around 1,000 incidents happened in Bangalore. Why is it she's being targeted, and it has blown beyond proportion. And he goes on to say, just for the fact that she's a BJP leader and she's a daughter of Arvind Limbavali, that's the reason why she's been targeted.
Right. Right, so this is going to blow up into a big controversy, whether or not the opposition takes it up or no. The people of Karnataka, of Bengaluru especially, do want some answers from the state government. Unfortunately, none of them are forthcoming for the moment. But Imran, thank you so much for getting us this exclusive and the very latest update on that. Moving on now to more breaking news coming in. The Interpol has issued a red corner notice against Goldie Brar. He claimed responsibility in the murder of Sidhu Moosewala, though this red corner notice is from before the murder of the Congress leader and rapper Sidhu Moosewala in Mansa in Punjab. But this is one step closer towards getting and prosecuting Goldie Brar, the gangster who is now in Canada. Bhavtosh is with me for more on this. Bhavtosh, there are several cases, including that of Sidhu Moosewala, that Goldie Brar is under the scanner for. This is one step closer towards India, tracking him down, getting perhaps his extradition to India next.
Yes, Poonam, in fact, that's not the only clear case in which he has been booked. There are two charge sheets that have been filed by the Punjab police against him. Both the cases are registered in Faridkot. On the basis of that case, Punjab police had in fact requested for a red corner notice against him. Remember, he has only made a call claiming that he's responsible for the death of Sidhu Moosewala. That case, no charge sheet has so far been filed. Lawrence Bishnoi has claimed the responsibility of that. Probe is still going on in that particular case. Apart from that, there is another important red corner notice that has been given by the Interpol headquarters in Lyon. That is against Harvinder Singh Rinda. Now, Rinda is someone who has been wanted in several terror cases that have been recently filed by the Punjab police and also by the NIA, particularly the Ludhiana Court blast case, which was in fact happened last December. In that particular case, NIA has in fact named him an accused, and NIA in fact has also called him a most wanted terrorist. Now he's hiding in Pakistan, and Pakistan, being a member nation of Interpol, would require to share information as far as Rinda is concerned. Remember, Rinda was first a criminal and then he turned himself into a terrorist, and India is hoping that Pakistan will cooperate as far as Rinda is concerned. His last location was found in Pakistan. As far as Goldie Brar is concerned, he claims to be in Canada, but there is no confirmed information whether he's in Canada or in some other country. So CBI is hoping that Canadian federal probe agencies will cooperate with them, and they're hoping that all the countries who are member nation will cooperate with them, not only in the case of Goldie Brar, but also in the case of Harvinder Singh Rinda.
Right, so a shot in the arm there for the agencies here in two specific cases. For the moment, Bhavtosh, thank you so much for getting us the very latest. Shifting focus now to the top story that we've been tracking for you all day here on Times Now, and it is the all-round, all-out crackdown on hate. It's cut across ideological divide, party lines and religious lines. The Delhi police booked netas, clerics and activists for their alleged hate messages and statements that were insightful and hurt religious sentiments. Among them is AIMIM chief Asduddin Owaisi. BJP suspended leaders Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal are also part of it. Controversial seer Yati Narsinganand and journalist Sabah Naqvi as well feature among those who have now been named in this particular FIR. But first, let me tell you what Ovesi, Yati Narsinganan, Nupur and everybody else has been booked for. There are specific sections of the law that they have been booked under, one of which of course is section 153A of the IPC, which is promoting enmity on the grounds of religion. Section 295 of the IPC is also damage to a place of worship or a sacred object, because remember, there were comments and memes that were made about the shivling-like structure in the Gyanvapi Mosque, which has also come under the scanner, and that also finds mention in this particular FIR of the Delhi police. Deliberate intent to hurt religious feelings is also a charge that many of them face. Of course, intentional insults to provoke and the breach of peace is also something that all of these people face charges against now, the punishment for which could go up to 5 years in jail. But this crackdown is being mocked as a fake balancewad and one-sidism. At least that's what the AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi called it today when he took to Twitter and put out 11 tweets where he said that there's absolutely no mention of what comment I have been booked for, and that of course is his right to raise a question about. But he also went on to allege that the Delhi police is only filing this FIR against certain sections to put out a facade of balance or a balancing act that is being done by the central government and by the BJP via the Delhi police. Now, unfortunately, Owaisi is not the only one. His co-accused, a political analyst, someone who leans towards the AIMIM, which is Danish Qureshi, has also alleged selective action. Listen in.
अभी तक किसी प्रकार की कोई जानकारी नहीं मिली। मीडिया के माध्यम से, टाइम्स नाउ चैनल के माध्यम से मुझे ये पता चला है कि भाई कुछ 30-31 लोगों के खिलाफ मामले दर्ज हुए हैं। उन 30-31 लोगों में एक मेरा भी नाम है। दरअसल दिक्कत क्या है कि हेट स्पीचर्स को काउंटर देना और हेट स्पीचर्स होना, इन दोनों चीज़ों में फ़र्क है। हम हमारे देश में देख रहे हैं कि किस तरह हेट्रेड फैलाने वालों को रिवॉर्ड दिया गया भारतीय जनता पार्टी की तरफ से। आप देख लीजिए, नंबर ऑफ क्रिमिनल्स, साध्वी प्रज्ञा हो, चाहे दिल्ली राइट्स के आरोपी हों, वो सारे लोग किस तरह से भारतीय जनता पार्टी में जुड़ते हैं। जो लोग नफरत की राजनीति करते हैं, उनके बड़े बड़े सांसद पब्लिकली स्टेटमेंट देते हैं गोली मारो को, तो उनके नाम नहीं आते। के खिलाफ इंसाफ के हक में बोलने वालों को हेट स्पीचर्स की लिस्ट में डाला जा रहा है। ये बहुत बड़ा मतलब अफसोसनाक बात है।
Now, Owaisi and company are misleading the country. The fact is that a section of minorities are using Nupur and Naveen's comments to spread Hindu phobia and are calling for beheadings, which is a maximum punishment for blasphemy according to their interpretation of the Sharia law. One such example is what we saw coming in from Jammu today.
मेरे भाइयों, लेकिन सरू को कलम करना भी सिखा तो इसलिए बातों को सहन में बिठा दो। हम खामोश तब तक है जब तक हमारा बर्दाश्त कायम है। बर्दाश्त से बाहर निकल गए तो फिर वो नुपुर शर्मा क्या, वो आशीष कोहली क्या, वो नुपुर शर्मा क्या, उनके सर कहीं और दर कहीं मिलेंगे। नबी का कलमे पढ़ने वाला मुसलमान खुद मैदान में आए और ये भगवे भी हमारे दुश्मन, आरएसएस भी हमारी दुश्मन है। तो इसलिए मैं अंजुमन इस्लामिया की तरफ से तमाम अवाम का शुक्रिया करता हूँ। मैंने जैसे पहले ही अर्ज किया कि ये अमन को खराब करने वाले अनासिर हैं, कभी अजान पे कभी पर्दे पे। तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को चाहिए जो अजान के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े, अगर जो पर्दे के खिलाफ बोले उनका गला पकड़े। ये गला नहीं पकड़ सकते तो हम गला काटने के लिए तैयार हैं। हम गला काटने के लिए तैयार हैं। और इनको मैं बताना चाहता हूं, सबसे ज्यादा कम दर्जे का मुसलमान इतना ईमान रखता है, दुनिया के किसी भी ब्रिगेडियर, किसी भी ताकत गुस्सा के नबी का सर कलम कर सकते।
बजाय इसके कि उनके खिलाफ एक्शन होता तो मुसलमान को तसल्ली हो जाती कि भाई इन्होंने अगर हमारे रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के खिलाफ कोई गुस्ताखी की है तो गवर्नमेंट ने उस पर एक्शन लिया। ये काम नहीं किया, बल्कि मुसलमानों के खिलाफ कार्रवाई शुरू कर दी। ये मुनासिब नहीं है।
जो लोग भी इसमें शामिल होंगे उनके खिलाफ उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार निश्चित तरीके से कार्रवाई करेगी, क्योंकि किसी को भी दंगा करने की इजाज़त नहीं है। और विपक्ष अगर जो है या अल्पसंख्यक समाज के वो लीडर या मौलाना जो ये बात कर रहे हैं वो उनको दंगाइयों को बचाने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं।
Moving on now, even as one leader after another from the opposition ranks is coming out to offer cover fire to the poster boys of hate and rioting in Kanpur, the truth is finding more and more ways of coming out, as it always does. Times Now has accessed fresh footage of the vicious violence that was unleashed on the streets of Beaconganj in Kanpur on the 3rd of June, and most importantly, images that show you precisely who the perpetrators of this violence were. Carefully watch what this CCTV footage that has come from across the street where the violence broke out has captured. There are people indulging in rampant stone pelting and vandalism. One of them even tries to cover his face while doing so, probably realizing that his face may be captured, and that is exactly what happened, which is likely since there were also videos showing attempts to destroy those cameras. Now let me make it clear. This is a video that is captured by a CCTV camera, not shot by a mobile phone by any particular individual. So it is unlikely that it would only capture one side of the story or the stone pelting, as is being alleged by some, including Assaduddin Owaisi. It is clear as day who was running the rampage on the roads of Kanpur on the 3rd of June. Yet, like I said, there are leaders like Assaduddin Owaisi of the AIMIM who choose to have a blinkered view. They allege bias on part of the prosecuting agencies.
अरे जब पत्थर फेंकता है तो दो तरफ से पत्थर फेंके जाते हैं, एक तरफ से पत्थर नहीं फेंका जाता, दो तरफ से पत्थर फेंके जाते हैं। और पुलिस का काम यह है कि जो पत्थर फेंकता उसको उठाओ आप, मगर यहां पर नहीं यही लोग किए, यही किए, यही पत्थर फेंके, पेट्रोल बम बनाए, व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप बनाए। याद रखो, ये कहानी बहुत पुरानी हो चुकी है, इस कहानी को बदलो। तुम 40 साल से सिर्फ यही कहानी, नहीं मुसलमानी फेंका, मुसलमानी किया, तो क्या सब क्या दूसरे दूध के धुले हुए हैं? मगर आप देखो कोई आवाज नहीं उठाता। उत्तर प्रदेश में समाजवादी के नेताओं के, उनके लीडर के मुंह में दही जम चुकी है, जबान नहीं खोलते।
Unfortunately, Owaisi is not an aberration when it comes to those defending these riot accused. Yesterday, while Samajwadi Party Neta Irfan Solanki said that innocent people's faces were being put up on these posters across the city, Congress's Shahnawaz Alam went as far as to say that there is no PFI in Uttar Pradesh and that it is a biased police which is planting reports to establish links that do not exist.
पुलिस अगर एक बाइस तरीके से काम करेगी तो उसको जस्टिफाई करने के लिए मीडिया में इस तरह के खबरें भी प्लान करानी पड़ेंगी उनको कि फलाने का फलाने से तार जुड़ा है। क्या तार जुड़ा है भाई? आप पीएफआई नाम का यहाँ तो कोई संगठन ही नहीं उत्तर प्रदेश में। जैसे ही ये पूरा मामला बना, आप देखिए अलकायदा का भी धमकी मिलने लगा है कि हम लोग नहीं जानते हैं इनकी क्या राजनीति है।
आप बिल्कुल गिरफ्तार करिए, पर जो दंगाई हूँ आप पोस्टर लगा के, इसका मतलब फिर वहीं पे आ गए। जो अब इस समय कानपुर में कमिश्नरेट लागू है, यानी कमिश्नर साहब को अपने थाना प्रभारियों पे भरोसा कम है, वो पोस्टर लगा के लोगों को चिन्हित कर रहे हैं। बात यह है कि आप खूब छानबीन करिए। हम तो चाहते हैं जो दंगाई हो, उसका नाम चाहे इरफान हो या राम हो या श्याम हो, उसको आप जेल के अंदर जरूर भेजिए। अगर वो निर्दोष है, चाहे उसका नाम इरफान हो या श्याम हो, आप उनको खिलाफ कार्रवाई ना करें। अभी आपने खुद ही अपनी बात में कहा कि वो कह रहे हैं कि अवैध निर्माण है, तो इसके लिए तो अदालत बनी है। आप तुरंत निर्णय नहीं ले सकते मेरे भाई। आपके कह देने से हम कातिल नहीं हो जाएंगे।
Some stories in brief now. After Mangaluru court ordered status quo in the Malali Jama Masjid survey case, the Hindu side argued against the Muslim lawyers who claimed that the property of the Malali Jama Masjid comes under the Waqf board. The Hindu side also requested the court to not lift the stay order. Condemning targeted killings in Jammu and Kashmir, members of the Rashtriya Muslim Manch organized a protest march in Srinagar today. Days after Shivsena demanded security for Kashmiri Hindus in the valley, party MP Priyanka Chaturvedi met with the family members of Rahul Bhatt, who was murdered by terrorists not too long ago.
क्यों नहीं आप सर बता सकते हैं?
सर मुझे बताइए, उन्होंने 5 लाख रुपया दे दिया
मतलब उस बंदे को जो ऑफिस में मारा गया, क्या उसके अलावा हम क्या बोल सकते हैं? 5 लाख रुपए क्या होता है आजकल के ज़माने में? 5 लाख तो बिल्कुल ऐसा है जैसे वो किसी भिखारी को दे देते हैं। 5 लाख से उसकी लाइफ तो नहीं चल सकती है, बच्चे की लाइफ नहीं चल सकती। मैं एक ही बात चाहता हूँ, जो भी बाकी मसले हैं खाली इंक्वायरी से ही सही, जस्टिस मेरे साथ हो, मेरे बच्चे के साथ जस्टिस हो।
Modi inaugurated the Biotech Startup Expo 2022 in the national capital today. He hailed the initiatives taken by the central government and expressed confidence that India will soon join the league of top 10 countries in the biotech global ecosystem. Now, the Congress is